Hello and welcome to episode 29 of the Livewire Game Show. I just cut Stephen off, he was about to say something. But yeah, episode 29. It's just the two of us tonight. Dylan was hiking, which is fine. It's exercise. And he's busy tomorrow night, which is Thursday night. We're recording this on Wednesday night this week. But so we just said, me and Stephen will do it by ourselves this week. And it's something that we've been wanting to do for quite a while. Originally we were gonna deep dive on the Pokemon Presents that was on today for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and Legends Arceus, but we'll cover it quickly. But the main topic is something me and Stephen have wanted to do because it deserves to be spoken about. It deserves a spotlight because we both really enjoyed it. It was a really brave direction with a AAA PS exclusive. So we're reviewing Returnal. We've spoken about it quite a lot, but we've never done the deep dive. So we're going to do it. We're going to talk about what we liked and what we didn't like. Mostly what we liked. And then we'll try to answer that controversial question of, is it a hard game? Right. But before we get into Returnal, we'll do a catch up. Just before we do this, Stephen, I'm gonna say it. Let's do a quick catch up this week because I want to get into the Returnal discussion.
Oh yeah,
we've waited long enough, so we'll do it 5 minutes catch up each, and then we'll jump straight into talking about Returnal and reviewing Returnal. Stephen,
massive spoilers as well.
Oh yeah, by the way, before we even start fucking catching up, it's story spoilers. It's full story spoilers for everything Returnal. I'll put
Nothing
a flash on. I will put a flash on the screen for when we're talking about the ending, so people can skip that if they want. But we'll try keep story spoilers to. No, but we'll try keep story spoilers to the narrative part of the discussion, and only discuss story in that. But it's full spoilers. The game came out 4 months ago, so it's full spoilers. Before we get going on that though, Stephen, how are you? What have you been up to?
I have been up to fuck all recently, so lots going on in real life. So so I haven't been up to anything. But it was my birthday on Sunday, and
it was. Happy birthday, by the way.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know it was your birthday. You kept that quiet.
Cheers. No, I didn't. You just didn't acknowledge it.
You kept that quiet. I didn't know it was your birthday.
Even Louise knew it was my birthday. Do you hear? But no, so what I did was I treated myself today to an Xbox Series S, aka Game Pass machine.
Game Pass.
That's all that is. That's all that is.
Now, do you need a Game Pass machine, seeing as the Nintendo Switch isn't ever going to be getting a Game Pass app?
No.
Because that was definitely going to happen at some point.
Yeah, because they can definitely run games at 30 frames per second consistently.
No, Phil Spencer actually did an interview about it. He was asked about the possibility of it coming to the Nintendo Switch, and the basic answer was, we've no plans to bring Xbox app, Game Pass app to closed-ended systems. Because, well, basically, why the fuck would Nintendo put an Xbox app on their console? It's like, don't buy our games, buy their games instead. It just makes no sense, really.
Yeah.
But we can hope. We can live in a glimmer of hope.
We can. But until then, I bought a Game Pass machine. And for the last few days, I'd been thinking about whether I'd go with the Series X or Series S. And I was like, okay, do I shell out more and get the higher performance, the PS5-like performance? And then I think two things swung it for me that I didn't, and one was the portability. So I saw Paris Lilly saying he was, traveling around, and he was basically like, yeah, the S is a great companion. You can just hook it up to any hotel TV, and it's tiny. I was like, yeah, do you know what? That's one really major point, is I can have next gen gaming wherever I go, but also I have a PC. So any game that goes to Game Pass that I want that extra performance, like ray tracing or 4K I can just hook my PC up to a TV with 4K
Exactly.
TV and I'll be fine. So
Exactly.
to me, it made no sense to get another PS5 like machine when I've already got a PC, a PS5, and now I just have the Series S. So I'm looking forward to trying it out. I won't open it for a few days, waiting on see if the house comes through or not. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because if it does 1080p 60 or 1440p 60 in most games, that's that's next gen, and
It's more than enough.
60 is the key thing. You can get away with 1080, 1440p, or upscaling to 4K, but 60 is key. And
I agree.
yeah, so that's literally been the only thing gaming wise that I've done all week. What about you?
It was buy a console.
Buy a console and not play it.
I'll rush through my one. I've actually done quite a bit this week in comparison to last week where I did nothing because I was ill. So I watched my usual WWE and AEW. Trying to get into AEW, which is, in most simple terms, it's the competitor. It's the WCW of 2021.
Oh, the WCW, Jesus.
Yeah, it's kind of the way that, like, they're not really positioning themselves to take it on. They're positioning themselves as another option, while signing up all the talent that WWE have released over the years. But they're not competitors. Chris Jericho says they're not competitors, but no, I'm enjoying it. Like, there's a very different kind of style. So it's from watching all the Stone Cold stuff they talk about. Like, the one thing that the built up ones, the one that have been there a long time, they're telling the up and coming stars is slow down. Just slow it down. And I've kind of noticed that that's like the WWE style is real slow and purposeful, and it lets the moment breathe. So they'll do something and then it'll breathe. Whereas in AEW, it's go, 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 go. And it's kind of like, I from watching the two and from listening to them speak about it, it actually makes a lot of sense to me because something cool will happen. And before you have any time to digest it, they've moved on to the next thing. But one thing that's really great, in my opinion anyway, there's actual matches. It's not like, if you watch a Raw or a SmackDown for WWE, half the show is promos.
Yeah.
Like, there's probably 4 or 5 matches on the card nowadays. And
Jesus.
yeah, and like a lot of it's just filled with, yeah, and the promos are important because that's how you get over with the crowd, is through your promos. Like, if you're good on the mic, like Stone Cold became one of the greatest of all time because he was a brawler, but he was great on the mic, and the fans bought into him great on the mic. So the mic work is very important. But it's a breath of fresh air actually just seeing match after match after match. And they still have their promos, they still have that kind of story development, but it's just refreshing actually turning it on for the 2 hours that it's on, and you might get 8 or 9 matches as opposed to 5 matches and a hell of a lot of fucking talking. So I'm enjoying that. SummerSlam's this Saturday, so looking forward to that. Yeah. I'm not like, I kind of watch wrestling as a casual. I'm not one of these that gets big into it and goes mad about it, but I enjoy that. On the gaming side, after moving my desk last week, I was trying out a few things on the OLED. I finally got past the opening cutscene of Death Stranding. I reckon I've watched the opening cutscene of Death Stranding probably half a dozen times or more, where it's like, oh, I'm going to start this game, watch the opening cutscene, and then, like, right, I'm going to, yeah, you know what, I'm not in the mood of playing this. And then about 4 months later, I do the exact same thing. So at this time, I've played about 2 hours worth. In that 2 hours, yeah, in that 2 hours, I've played about 25 to 30 minutes of actual gameplay. I have opinions on that I'll kind of keep to myself till I've played a bit more. It's a weird game. Like, I don't think any developer could have gotten away with making that game and releasing it as a AAA title apart from Kojima. I think Kojima's the only one with enough respect and hardcore fans, to just put it bluntly, that it doesn't matter what he does, people will lick that shit off the fucking ground for him. And that comes from having it's like the big movie directors like Christopher Nolan stuff. You've got people who just love everything he does, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. They love it because it's Christopher Nolan. Like, I love a lot of Christopher Nolan stuff. It's like directors, or it's like music. It's like artists. Yeah, they've got such a back catalogue that they've earned that respect to people that it kind of gets to the stage where, like, well, I've done all this for you and you loved it, so now I'm gonna do what I really want to do, and it's almost like it's a real personal album, but in game form. But yeah, it's a weird one. Like, there's no doubting how amazing the game looks. I can't think of a game I've ever played that looks more realistic than it. It's photorealistic. It's incredible. Like, the voice acting is great so far. Obviously, there's been a lot of cutscenes, and it's kind of pulling me into the story of, well, what's actually going on here. But I haven't done a lot of the actual gameplay yet, so I'll see if I actually enjoy that. But I am curious what the hell is actually going on. I don't know what's going on in Death Stranding. I have no spoilers for the game. So yeah, I don't think anybody apart from Kojima could have got away with making Amazon Prime delivery game. There would have been outrage if Bungie did this, or if CDPR did this. There'd be backlash. Or if Activision, if there's Activision or any indie dev, if anyone did this, they'd be like, "What is this shit? This is." But Kojima has gained that much respect that people will sit back and go, "No, we get it. We'll go along for that ride with you." So yeah, I'm gonna try that out. Played a bit of Destiny, wrapping up seasonal stuff. That's all done now. Kind of taking a break for this week. Apart from maybe I'll do a few GMs because there's the snipers in the loot pool. But apart from that, the biggest thing probably this week, not that I did that, but that I watched, was, first of all, it was the Sky Oblivion developer diary, which would look cool, by the way. That all looked great. But then the leader of the project, I could be wrong in saying that, I think he's the leader of the project, is Rebel Size. Again, could be pronouncing that completely wrong. It's Rebel Zize, Rebel Size, Rebel Z's, whatever. He did a 3.5-hour stream of, I'm not going to say gameplay, but gameplay. He went around the map, he went to different locations, different points of interest, showed off some of the gear, showed off all this, and my god, it looks incredible. Like, I was excited when I watched the developer diary. I've been excited for a while, but when I watched the developer diary, I was like, oh, this is really coming together. But when you watch that stream, it's like, holy, how did they do this? Like, they're doing an insane job. And anybody who has worked on that project in depth is going to end themselves a job somewhere after it. Like,
Bethesda.
But like, they'd be crazy not to.
Oh yeah,
like,
absolutely.
These guys clearly know how the engine works. They clearly know how to make it do what they want it to do. Their artistic vision is insane. Like, but one thing that was actually really endearing about him was he's like, oh, how many people are watching the stream? And they're like, oh, 4.5K or something. He's like, wait, there's 4.5K people watching me do this? Holy shit, what? Because it was literally just him walking around Sky Oblivion's map. For anyone not aware, Sky Oblivion is, they're taking Skyrim's map, Skyrim's world or sandbox, whatever you want to call it, and they're recreating the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion in Skyrim as a free mod. And as always, I'll put the link to the developer diary and the 3-hour stream in the description. Go, if you were into Oblivion or if you enjoyed Skyrim on all 16 consoles it's released on, go have a look at this, because they are doing a phenomenal job on Oblivion. Like, Sky Oblivion. I couldn't get over. I was watching that 3-hour stream, just been like, how does this look so good? Like,
but the other thing is, like, you kind of have to I don't want people going into this thinking that they're going to see like realistic graphics. What you're seeing is a game that is clearly Skyrim, but with the most, like, with visual fidelity and vividness to the whole game that, like, Bethesda has never achieved
No.
in any of their games. Like the way that they make the engine
Oblivion
work.
was probably closest.
Yeah, but even then, like the way that they can make the part I came in on, they were just outside the Citadel, and just the colors, like you could see the sun setting in this beautiful kind of like orangey yellow color, but in front of that then were these autumnal brown trees, and everything just looked so crisp and vivid. But you could tell it's a 10-year-old game, but it just
I think
looks...
for a 10-year-old game, that's a recreation of a 15 to 16-year-old game.
Yeah,
It's insane. And by the way, just to point out to you, by the way, that stream was in 720p.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's probably playing on 1080 or possibly even 1440p. That stream was in 720p and it looked that good.
Yeah, like it's going to be phenomenal, and I can't wait for it to come out.
I'm not looking forward to install it though. It's gonna be a nightmare to install.
Install all these 400 mods, and then here's the 4K texture pack.
Yeah, basically. So yeah, though I've been kind of deep diving on that. I actually installed Skyrim and played a little bit of it the other day just to play it on PC. Kind of funny. It doesn't handle very well with a mouse and keyboard. It just it's just like an input lag. It's weird, but when you play with a controller, it's obviously fine. Yeah, that's basically been my week. The other thing I did was a hell of a lot of Pokemon Go this week because Shiny Heracross was available. Spent a lot of time and a little bit of money to get that Shiny Heracross. These RNGs did not bless me this time around, but I got it in the end. I was just on the fucking Pokemon Go raids Reddit for a couple days, just refresh. Heracross raid, remote raid it. Refresh. Heracross raid, add friend, remote raid. I think over Monday and Tuesday night, I did like 40 to 50 raids. Just from all over the world. It was great. I was literally going from Italy to America to fucking Norway. All not spoofing, by the way, just to clarify that. It was with remote raid passes. It was legitimate. I was adding people, join the raid, unfriend them. But I got it because I love Heracross and that pink is nice. And I'm going to shut up now because we're getting a bit carried away. And we're going to move on. We will move into our Returnal review. I think, depending on how long we go, we'll dip back to the Pokemon Presents stream at the end for 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
Or we'll just leave it. We'll see how time goes because I want to focus on Returnal and not really be thinking about anything else at the moment.
You and I are going to spend a long time talking about this, so
probably
just jettison Pokemon for now.
We're gonna spend a long time talking about one particular biome.
Yeah, and we'll probably repeat ourselves a lot.
Quite a lot.
Being an endless cycle.
100%. Yeah. Now, I do have, obviously, I've got some things that I didn't particularly like about it. But yeah, before we get into that, we'll move on. Our Returnal review is beginning now. If you've played Returnal, great. Hope you enjoy it. If you haven't and want to avoid spoilers, we'll try avoid them for the most part. We'll try our best to keep it to narrative, and it'll be bookmarked in the YouTube video so you'll know which part to skip if you want to skip spoilers. But full spoiler warning for narrative, for characters, for the ending as well, because the ending is something that we're going to discuss. And
you know what? Like, it might be good. So, Kev, you've done some prep for this. So, I think we should stick to the logic here, at least up until the third point. So, first thing we're going to talk about is gameplay and level design. Yeah. So, we will be talking about biomes 4, 5, and 6. We will keep them spoiler free, but we will be discussing the biomes, which hasn't been.
I don't really think we can actually keep them that spoiler free. I think the only thing we can promise to keep spoiler free is the ending, but we will mark where the spoilers for the ending is. If we're talking about gameplay and level design, it's very difficult to avoid spoilers.
Okay. Then the next thing is visual and audio. Again.
Yeah.
Probably spoilers.
Here's what we're gonna say. Full spoilers for Returnal. If you don't want to get spoiled on Returnal, just don't watch this week or skip it.
Just like and subscribe. See you next week.
Just like and subscribe. Just put it on mute and just wait till the video ends.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So yeah, Returnal. What is Returnal? Before we get into breaking it down, Returnal is a AAA, over-the-shoulder, third-person shooter. It's an action-adventure game with roguelite elements. I wouldn't call it a roguelite, and a lot of people wouldn't either. I think if you're reviewing it as a roguelite, it's probably not a very good roguelite. It's got some elements in there. It's got some dungeon crawling elements, which ties in as well. But yeah, it's a AAA over-the-shoulder third-person shooter. It's split into 2 acts, 6 different regions or biomes, as they're called in it. It is a bullet hell. We'll just throw it in Souls-like.
Yeah.
No, yeah. It's got some Souls-like elements as well. So Returnal comes from Housemarque. They were a second-party PlayStation developer. They have now been acquired by PlayStation to develop first-party titles for exclusively for Sony for PlayStation, which GG's. Hopefully that goes well. I'm surprised it took this long because they developed Resogun back in 2013.
And Star Galaxy or something.
Yeah, but Resogun specifically was a PS exclusive as far as I'm aware. It was the launch PS Plus game with the PlayStation 4. Yeah. Look at me being old and having a good memory. So yeah, developed by Housemarque. They've been acquired now by PS Studios. So really excited to see what they do next, because what they did with Returnal was excellent. Returnal it flashes up on the screen. It's a challenging game, and there's a discussion to be had around that, and we will get into that discussion of, is Returnal hard? We both have opinions on that, but we'll get into that. I think I've covered basically what Returnal is.
I think so.
The lead character you play. So the story basically, I won't get into too much just yet, but you play as Celine, who handles like a charm, by the way. She plays really well, controls really well. She is an astronaut who has crash landed on an alien planet called Atropos.
Atropos. Yeah. Atropor.
Yeah. She crash landed on that, and she's trying to figure out the mystery of the planet and the alien race that once inhabited it. She's kind of living in this Groundhog Day loop of she dies, she resets. The area has stayed the same, but the order she traverses through those areas changes. So it's kind of Groundhog Day. She repeats it over and over again, and at a certain point of the story, it kind of Groundhog Days you a little bit there as well. So yeah, I think that's really it in terms of what Returnal is. I think that's a brief enough synopsis of what.
Well, I think the game there's one key thing, which is that Celine, who is an Astro Scout, is actually drawn to the planet Astropor because she receives a signal broadcast called White Shadow. Mm-hmm. That's what takes her to the planet, and she crash lands. So your mission is to investigate the source of the White Shadow broadcast.
Yeah, that is the mission. That's the mission for the first half of the game.
Spoilers.
Anyway, we'll get into it. I mentioned it briefly. The gameplay. Celine handles absolutely fantastically. All of the weapons handle absolutely fantastically. So it's a third person. She moves really well. You eventually unlock abilities. The grappling hook improves your traversal. It unlocks other areas in previous biomes that you can go back and explore again. So the way the gameplay is designed is you spawn in biome 1. There's 6 biomes total. It's split into 2 acts. So act 1 is biomes 1 to 3. Act 2 is biomes 4, 5, and 6. If you die, so you play through biome 1, you kill the boss in biome 1. If you get into biome 2 and die, you start back at the beginning of biome 1 again. Now, you don't have to fight the boss after you've beaten the boss in each biome, but you do have to traverse through it again. So that's the way it's set up. It's set up 6 very different biomes, very different regions. One's a forest, kind of rainforest area. One is the second biome. Then you go into this, like, it opens out into a desert area.
Sand dune.
So the first one's very, very claustrophobic and tight corridors, and then it opens out. And that biome 3 is then a citadel. It's big, kind of massive, oversized architecture. It's a citadel. It's no other way to describe it. It's but like the changes from biomes 1 as you go into the biomes 2 and 3, like the changes in the architecture, the changes in even the music changes, even the, what do you want to call it, the how it looks, the aesthetic of it all changes. So it really guides you through this real changing environment all the time. And I think that's basically, to bring it to the most basic level, Housemarque's level design of the 6 different levels of this game is absolutely phenomenal. Like, it's such a aesthetically beautiful world. All of the biomes are so aesthetically beautiful. They're so different to each other. Yeah.
Yeah, like in terms of gameplay, like if anyone is listening to this, they would have heard me say before, I hate third-person shooters.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of third-person shooters either.
So for me, this was going to be like a love or hate type game. It was, I could really lose it on the third-person shooter, but they nailed it. Like
that's initially what turned me off.
Yeah, that was a big one, especially because it didn't look like you can go into ADS. So you couldn't aim down the sights, so you were like, I'm going to be just fucking shooting at nothing here. But there is a huge amount of, of aim assist. It's not noticeable, like you don't really see your gun moving, but the weapons themselves have built-in auto-targeting. And you'll have like different shots, so you'll have like the ones that shoot straight, but it'll also shoot out little kind of tracker one, so you never feel like you're disadvantaged because you can't aim down sights, which plays in really well with the gameplay, because the key to Returnal's gameplay is to keep moving. Like,
yes.
So you don't, if you are standing still in Returnal, you're going to die. And I think anyone who is probably used to shooting, like, camping or playing any sort of gunplay like that, you're going to struggle instantly. I'm really chaotic. If people see me in Crucible, they'll know I just run around randomly and I'm terrible. But that played really well for Returnal because it meant that I was used to running into situations, and the game is so quick. Like, you can hit X to jump and you're in the air straight away. You can dodge and there's no delay. You dodge. The invincibility frames in it are fantastic. They're really forgiving. They're really well telegraphed as well. So you're not going like, is this part of my dodge that I get? It's like, you get it for a huge part of that dodge, and you can see it basically. And it just all works really well because the game is a fast-paced dodge. Like, it's a bullet storm game, or hellstorm game, and you're just basically dodging projectiles, and the only way for that to work in this environment is for it to be responsive, and it is, and they need to be. The guys at Housemarque just did a fantastic job with that. In terms of the level design, like, I love that Promethean look.
Yeah, it looks like it could be part of the Alien universe.
Yeah, and I think when I think of the trailers from years ago when it was kind of first shown, there was this what looked like a xenomorph being born in a Promethean-like thing. It's like, what is this? And then it's Returnal, but like, you've got these like statues. What I really love about the level design is the consistency across the three biomes. Is that you can see that there's this, like, the, what do they call them? The Xeno. What do they call the? Not xenomorphs.
The glyphs?
Xeno. No, what did she call the race? A xenotype or something, or
the xenotype? It was just a xenotype. I think she just said xenotype.
A xenotype race, and like, it's the consistency through which you can see that there is a civilization with them. So when they have statues, it's like some of them are facing towards different objects or praying to certain things, and the level design just really works well in that nothing seems out of place. Everything seems to be put in whatever, because it's all the rooms are randomly generated. So you don't go into a room where you've got
that's not fully true, by the way. They're not
no,
fully randomly generated. So all of the rooms are permanently designed the way they are, but it's that they spot the random generation is the sequence they spawn.
Yeah.
Or some just may not spawn on a particular run. So if you're running through Biome 1, you will get most of the same rooms all the time, but the order they appear in it will change, and some appear all the time, some appear every 5th run or 6th run. So it does keep it feeling a little bit fresh.
But it's just going from Biome like 1 to 2 to 3 and seeing this consistent architecture. Even though you're in different environments, it's very clear that this civilization had a culture, a hierarchy, some form of governance that they looked up to and worshipped, and that's really telling in it. And then, not to go into gameplay stuff, but there are the xenoglyphs which kind of give you the language that can break down text from different like tablets and stuff, and then you've got what you call them, the ciphers and the big you can watch like an image that kinds of forms, and you get a story piece around it which tells you more about the civilization, and certain things make sense then when you see them, like, oh yeah, that's what they were talking about. So the level design is fantastic, and even the verticality in
the world design itself.
Yeah, and even in each level, like you were saying, so in Biome 1, in the forest, it is very claustrophobic, and I think that's probably where people might encounter the first difficulty, is that you've got these bullet hell projectiles coming at you in a very closed environment. So if you're not aware of where you are with respect to the enemy, in respect to the height, to where your back is to the wall, you can get caught out very quickly, very easily. But once you learn the movement and the levels and the rooms, it's very easy to get around and navigate that stuff. And it's just, every time I go into a new room, there's kind of a pattern of like, you just assess what you're doing unless something comes at you straight away. And it's such an amazing level design. Like each room, there hasn't been one room that I've gone into where I went, this is clearly the intern got this one. And
what I find amazing in those rooms is I've seen certain rooms in people's videos or in other people's reviews, and I've never seen those rooms, which is kind of crazy. Like Ralph in his review had a room where lots of items had spawned on different pillars, and those pillars were sinking down. So he had to make the decision of which items do I want to get. I never saw that room in my whole life.
You never saw that room? I see that room constantly.
Never. I've not seen it once. And it's in the first biome. It's either in biome 1 or 4. I've never seen it.
I hate that room.
I genuinely have not seen that room.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, like, you spoke about Housemarque's gameplay and how they've really nailed the gameplay. And that's not accidental that they did that. It's worth touching back on. If you look back at Housemarque's previous games, like one was a side on kind of
Super Stardust, yeah.
Super Stardust. You had Resogun, but they all have that very clear identity that yes, they look different, they play different, but they have they've got that Housemarque. Same as like I mentioned, Death Stranding or Kojima. Kojima games have that stamp of Kojima. This is a Kojima game. And it's the same with Housemarque. They've developed this gameplay pattern over decades, 30 years nearly, 25 years, and they've built it, they've improved it to the extent that this is their, what I don't know what you want to call it, is it magnum opus? Is that the right term to use? They've perfected their gameplay, and here's your AAA, just pure brilliance that they've worked. Yeah. They've developed their craft, and here's the end product. And I hope it's not the end product, because I'm really excited to see them continue in this AAA space. Because I wouldn't generally play bullet hell games. It wouldn't be something I'd be interested in. It's that top down. I wouldn't be into it. because I can't think of the name. You mentioned it, Stephen, the one before Returnal, the top-down bullet hell shooter.
Well,
Like if you compare Returnal to that game, they look nearly identical. It's the same color, it's the same particles, it's the same. Everything is the same, but one is just it's AAA. It's high quality. So yeah, it's no accident that the gameplay is it's perfect. I couldn't pick a fault with the actual gameplay. And I think I'll go into the gunplay itself is also fantastic. The gunplay in the third. So for me, when I'm playing a third person shooter in comparison to playing a first person shooter, I feel a more personal connection with a first person. It's like I'm behind the eyes of it. So the gun I'm using, and this is a Destiny thing specifically. The gun almost feels like I'm using it because Bungie have perfected their craft in gunplay. Bungie's gunplay is incredible. So I always find when I'm playing a third person shooter, I don't have that same kind of personal attachment to the character I'm playing as or to the gun that I'm using. And that was absent in Returnal. And that's because of how good the gunplay felt to use. Now, you mentioned it, Stephen. Returnal's gunplay isn't about precise shooting. It's not about precise shooting. And we'll get into that later on, but I do think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is that they're trying to hit every single headshot. They're trying to hit every single O. So, just to touch on it, there's lots of different archetypes of weapons. You have a carbine, the fully automatic rifle. You have like the hollow seeker is, I don't know what you want. It's kind of like an AR as well.
Auto rifle, yeah.
It's a long range auto rifle in a way. You've got
Anarchy.
You've got semi-automatic weapons. You've got an anarchy type weapon from Destiny where you stick an explosive trip mine. Yeah, you've got a shotgun. You've got any weapon you can think of under the sun. Now I'm gonna touch back on the weapons in a minute when I'm finished praising the game, but the gunplay feels fantastic, and that is probably particularly down to the haptic feedback from the PlayStation controller. And I know I'm jumping ahead to next gen features a bit.
You are.
I am, but the controller in your hand when you're shooting those weapons feels incredible. They all have a unique feel to them. The rumble changes depending on the weapon you're using and the perk that weapon has. The controller feels different in your hand, and that's incredible. That's mind-blowing. And again, we'll touch back on this in next gen feature chat, but it makes me excited to see what the likes of a Bungie could do with it, because Bungie make weapons feel incredible to use. Just Bungie can make a weapon feel powerful just by the audio design of it, the sound of it in the game, or how it feels to shoot it, or how it they can change how they can nerf a weapon or buff a weapon just by changing how it feels. So this technology in Bungie's hands is exciting.
Yeah, and just to go back on the gunplay, like, I think what makes the gunplay really interesting isn't that you have these archetypes of guns that you're going to pick one and go, oh, that's my archetype. It's actually the perks. And I found that really interesting, because after a while I found myself gravitating towards guns with certain perks rather than certain guns. So at the start, I was really enjoying the carbine because it was just an AR.
Stephen, just before you continue on, actually, so you don't get to pick your loadout for the game, by the way. You can go into a room and there'll be a chest there, or an enemy may drop it, and it's total RNG for what weapons you may get on a run. And you may have to keep exploring different rooms in each of the biomes to get the weapon that you want. Sorry, Stephen, go on. Just to touch in on that, just to make it clear how the gun drops work in the game. And that goes for all gear. That goes for all the gear in the game. And
everything's randomized. Yeah. And that's what makes you kind of hunt for certain weapons, where, like, when, as Kev said earlier on, if you get to biome 2 and you die, you go back to biome 1. You're probably more willing to run through biome 1 because you're like, I want to find a weapon that's going to help me get through the part that's stuck on a biome 2. And if you die in that cycle, like, grand, whatever. It's fine. But what I really liked is at the start I gravitated towards the carbine because I was like, okay, this is feels like a weapon I'm comfortable using. But then I unlocked the Hollow Seeker and I was like, okay, I don't really like this weapon because I used it against one of the bosses. Like, it does not do any damage.
Until you unlock the perks.
Until you get the perks. And things like, you start seeing things coming up like Leech Rounds was one at the very start that I was really keen on. I was like, oh, this helps me get health back, which I need because I'm getting dinked all the time. And then eventually you start going, oh, no, actually, what I want is Void Beam. I want this random ass Void Beam just appearing out of nowhere, wrecking everything.
Portal Beam,
it's
like, isn't it?
Portal Beam, yeah. Void Beam is the alt fire.
Is the alt fire, which we need to touch on, by the way.
Yeah. And it's interesting because then, okay, so not every weapon will have those perks, but certain ones will. I think it's within the archetype you probably get something like that. And as you go through the game, you get higher versions of those perks, which is great. But it keeps the game feeling fresh because sometimes you might go, oh, here's a weapon I haven't used and it has an interesting perk that I haven't unlocked yet. I'm going to give it a go and see how it is. And you could end up loving it. And I really like that it doesn't lock you into picking a gun.
I have a question for you then before we talk about the overloads and that. How many weapons did you like using while you were playing Returnal?
Like using?
Yeah.
3.
It's more than me.
4, maybe 4. There were 2 that I would exclusively use, but there were 2 others that I would take if I had to.
Okay.
Do you want to tell me what your ones are?
You mentioned the 2 of them. Like, it was only when I was going for the platinum that I would just take anything because I was speedrunning anyway. And it was only when I started to do that and unlocking some extra perks for those weapons. I went, oh shit, this stuff's really good. I think, and this is me actually being a bit critical of the game. I think the 2 guns we've mentioned, the Carbine and the Hollow Seeker, they are so accessible early game that the game kind of tricks you into thinking that these are the best weapons. Because they feel so powerful so early, whereas the shotgun feels like it hasn't got any range, or I can't think of some of the other weapons but they just didn't feel great to me. They felt like they fired slowly, or the overload didn't come in quick enough. But I felt like the Hollow Seeker and the Carbine were so efficient, and it goes to the game design as well. So the Hollow Seeker and the Carbine were just kind of like you locked onto your target and then just kind of blind fired while dodging all the bullet hail. And I found that I got through this game with very few deaths in comparison to a lot of people. That those 2 weapons in particular made it a lot easier than the slower firing or the ones with limited ammo in the mag had. I just ignored them. If I got a shot, I'd move on. If I would keep hunting in biomes 1 or 4, which is the first biome in each act, until I got a Hollow Seeker or a Carbine. And then I just went. I was happy to move forward then. And then I'd get a better one at some point, or I'd get one with a better perk at some point. But I exclusively used only those 2 weapons for the whole game.
Yeah,
I didn't touch anything else.
I think that's fair because I think while you're saying they trick you into thinking they're the most powerful, I think they are. Because
I think they're the most accessible.
Well, I
think they're powerful or easy to use. I don't know where you want to put it, without the perks. Whereas the other weapons get more powerful when you unlock the perks. Like, I've seen clips on Reddit where someone kills a boss in 8 seconds with a gun that I wouldn't look at. But it's only when you unlock all the perks on those weapons that they become really powerful. Whereas the Carbine and the Hollow Seeker are good out of the gate.
Yeah, I would argue that the Hollow Seeker isn't a great weapon without perks. Like, what I find is it's pretty much a wet noodle on its own. Whereas the Carbine can actually pump out damage. But the Hollow Seeker tends to, for some reason, doesn't feel as powerful.
Unless you have specific perks, yeah.
Yeah, like the perks that I loved seeing on it were Serrated Rounds, the Portal Beam, and
Waves.
Waves. Waves destroy things. But the other two that I used were the Rodigan Lobster, which is it's like a grenade launcher and it shoots a pool of acid on the ground. I got one of those on a run with can't remember what the perks were, but it one-shot everything.
Yeah.
Like it fucking wrecked.
I only found out how powerful they were when I was running for platinum, since the platinum is a bit awkward to get. So I was literally doing 5-minute runs through Biome 1 and 2. And it was literally, whatever gun I get, I'm gone with it. I didn't care. And I was kind of like, oh, this isn't actually that bad now that I've unlocked a perk or two. But I think that's the one kind of critique I have of the gunplay, is that those two guns feel so good to use that the rest
you don't
of
want to use anything else.
I didn't want to use anything else. And I think maybe that's saying the weapon variety isn't great. Even though it is, because they all have unique feel. I just felt like the weapon variety for what felt good in my hands was slim. But that's a personal critic. That's a personal critique that I wasn't willing to step outside my comfort zone and embrace. But in my defense, I was doing so well using just those two things. Why would I didn't want to play a risk. And just actually seeing you get a question there, and then I'll move on to something I want to say on gameplay.
I was gonna say, did you not like the Euclidean driver, like the anarchy weapon?
Hated it.
I loved that. That was just so good for crowd control, and because the other thing that we should mention, and I don't think it's mentioned in the game at all, is that enemies have a stagger bar. You can stagger your enemies.
I figured that out. When did I figure that out? I figured that out when I was fighting some of the trash mobs die pretty quickly, but it's the mini boss kind of majors. I kind of went, oh, they have a stagger bar. It is explained, actually. It is explained very early on, but I think in the early hours of that game, you're so paranoid about just trying to stay alive that you miss. It is actually explained. This is Kiro's stagger bar.
Yeah, and this is where headshots work. So if you are landing headshots, you stagger the enemy, which is great because in certain enemies, like the dog type ones, if you stagger them, go up and hit them with a melee, they're dead.
Yeah.
And if you know how to tackle them that way, it's great. Other things don't have stagger bars and then go fuck themselves.
Yeah, I think there's a great learning curve with the game, and some people learn it a lot quicker, and some people take hours upon hours to learn it. But I don't know when it was, but there was a moment. I'm gonna say it was on my. So I played through Biome 1, got most of the way through Biome 2, and just got shreked by something. And then I went on a run from Biome 2 all the way to Biome 5 without a single death. And it was like something just clicked with me on that Biome 2 second run through that I kind of went, I understand this game. I understand how it works and how to make it do what I want it to do. And I just went, I went on a run, was it 7 hours or something like that, where I just didn't die in the game, which is insane if you think about it. Because my playthrough was 12 hours or something. No, it was a bit longer than 18 hours. I can't remember what my first playthrough was.
18 or 20, yeah.
I went on a 7-hour run where I just did not die. Because something just clicked with me, and I went, I get how this game works. But I want to touch back on something you said, Steve, and I felt different about it. You said that it's a very fast-paced game.
Mm.
I didn't feel like it was a fast-paced game. I felt the way I played it was very slow-paced. You're talking about you move chaotically. If you watched me play Crucible, I don't move chaotically.
Yeah.
And it was the same in Returnal, and I won't get into it too much because I want to save a lot of this discussion for Is Returnal Hard. But my movements were very purposeful. I wasn't just running like fucking crazy. When I was against trash mobs, I'd position myself where I could see them all, and then I'd lock on with the L trigger, let it go, and just hold down my right trigger till that enemy died. And then I'd lock on to the next one, and I'd just move side to side, or just dodge, move side to side. And I found it very slow. I actually found it quite slow-paced for the most part. There were parts of it where the intensity when you were fighting those majors, especially the ones with melee attacks,
Yeah.
that was very fast paced and intense. But for the majority of the game, I found it the way I played it was very slow and methodical. I was methodical about it, which is just the way I describe it.
I think Housemarque just gave you a bum RNG and it was all just this easy.
Like, I don't want to sit here thinking like, oh, I'm amazing because I didn't find it difficult. But I approached it in a way, like the way I play a lot of games, a lot of single player games, I'll play the opening hour or so, and then I'll start it again with having gained that bit of knowledge on how the game works. So like I had no issues. Once I restarted and started going again, I found it very straightforward. It's not the right way, but I was just methodical. It's like I know how the enemies work. I know how the big majors work. Like the ones with the ability, I can't remember the ones with the fucking what you want to call it coming out the back of them. That kind of ground poundage here. There's one early on in the game.
Yeah. That
like
fucker,
with those, when that spawned, I'd fight it at one end of the arena. When it did the melee attack on me, I'd just sprint to the other side of the arena, turn around, and start shooting at it again. So they never caused me any problems because I wasn't taking them on in close quarters combat. I was saying, right, I'm going to shoot you till you get close to me, and then I'm going to back away and reposition myself and start shooting again. As you were saying, the game does reward movement. But I feel like the game punishes chaotic movement because, and we'll get into this in the audio design segment of it.
Yeah,
like you can hear stuff behind you, but you can't see the bullet trails. Whereas the way I approached it was, I can see everything at all times. I was like a centre back in football. I can see the whole football pitch, so I can make purposeful movements to react to what's coming at me.
I think the game design, to sum it up. The game design more rewards not being hit than it does anything else. It doesn't matter what you do, as long as you're not being hit, you're playing the game right.
Because you go up 5 levels. What's it called?
The proficiency.
No, not the weapon proficiency. When you get kills, you get 3 kills. You go up to rank 1 of
adrenaline.
Adrenaline, yeah. And when you get hit, you start again. You go back to your base, so you get you get perks and modifiers for killing enemies and not getting hit. So the game isn't about going out there and slaying stuff like you're Akimbo SMG runner in Call of Duty. It's about staying alive, dodge and shoot, dodge, move and shoot, and it rewards that.
Yeah. Have you anything more you want to say about gameplay or levels?
Not really, aside from on the guns, the overload feature. I love that. So you're shooting your gun, you have a mag of say 30 rounds in a carbine. When you empty that mag, it's not a reload thing. There's a bar comes up on your screen, and if you press the reload button or the shoot button, when it gets to the middle of that bar, there's a little box you get it in. It auto reloads your gun for you, and you just keep firing. If you miss it, you go into that longer reload pattern. I love that feature. It was absolutely brilliant. It was a really unique take on reloading, and I'd love to see a gun in Destiny embrace something like that.
Well, this is something that Gears of War did back in the early 2000s, and it was a feature I hated back then because I think the bar moved a bit sporadically. I think it went really fast and then slowed down, and it was. I just remember not liking it, but this worked really well in that every gun had its own unique overload feature, and as you got your adrenaline up, your overload bar went from a small little segment to half the thing. So it made it easier because you find very early on, if you're in a battle situation and it's quite chaotic, you can easily miss your overload till you get used to that weapon. But if you're avoiding being hit, your adrenaline gives you the grace of a bigger overload bar. So it rewards not being hit, but the overload is... I don't want to get into it too much because it's in the next part, but there are so many cool features with the weapons, and the overload is one of them. And I only realised after a while what was being done when I took off my headset. I went, oh, that was what was going on.
Yeah, just to summarize on the way the game is designed, just in case you haven't been too clear on it. The game is separated into 2 acts, 6 biomes total, 3 per act, and each biome, apart from biome 5, has its own boss at the end of it, and that's like a Souls boss, or it's like a From Software boss, where they have attack patterns or abilities that need to be learned. The only thing we haven't really touched on is the design of biome 6, which is the underwater biome, and was really cool to play through because you're used to this kind of fast movement and auto reactions, whereas in this one it's like it's anti-gravity, it's like you're moving slow, it's like you gain extra height and you move slower, like you turned on the no gravity in Tony Hawk all those years ago. The only thing we didn't really say was actually on the jump and the dodge. If you hold the button in for longer, you get a higher jump or a longer dodge, which is I don't think we really talk about. We could talk about that a bit later, I guess. Well,
there's loads of things you could talk about, like even the laser grids and some of the other things that they build into the game. But look, there are things that you just need to experience. They're not out of the norm.
Exactly. Right. So we'll move on to part 2 out of several, after nearly an hour. GG's. So yeah, the visual and audio design, and we've already spoken a lot about the visual, about how the levels look. We've already kind of touched on that, so we'll really focus on audio in this. And I know you mentioned the overload, Stephen, and how the audio works for that, so enlighten us. What did you find out when you went like this and took your headset off?
So I had the headset on because I was like, 3D audio, give it a go, see what it's like. Because a few people praise it, and we'll talk about it later. It's phenomenal. But every so often, so when you unlock the alt fire for your gun, it makes it like a ding ding kind of like noise. It makes a noise, and I was like, oh yeah, I can hear that. That's great. And then when you're doing the overload, it makes it like a reload noise, but it's futuristic and sci-fi. It's really distinctive.
You can also hear it powering up. So
you can hear it,
if you press your overload or your alt fire too early, it kind of gives you a feedback of it's not ready yet. But if it's nearly there, it kind of does this powering up noise.
Yeah,
and that's through the really controller, by the way.
So that's what I was gonna say. So I had the headset on, and I could hear all this, and I was playing at like 1 a.m. or something, and I went into bed, and I just got looks of like, what the fuck have you
so
been doing?
Loud.
That's what. I did not, because I could hear through the headset when it was on, like, high enough.
I had to turn it down. And I put it on like volume 3.
It felt like it was in my ears. I was like, oh yeah, so it's going through my headset. And then it was like the next day I was playing again. I was like, okay, I have to check this. Like, oh fuck, it's actually so was coming through. But it's so, but like even how clear it is, like I did not mistake it for something that came through a controller's, headset that it wasn't this really whiny kind of like, shit speakers can have this really tinny noise. Nothing like that. It felt like it was in my ear, and the audio design in general. Like, so did you play with headsets in at all, Kev?
No, I played through the TV.
Okay, so
and by the way, it was fun. It was great. By the way, I heard everything.
So to comment on the headset, so obviously if you have PS5, any headset will give you the patented 3D audio. My God, the directional audio in this is phenomenal. Like, games have said they've had 3D audio for a long time.
They haven't.
They
haven't.
This is the only game where if I didn't realize I was playing a game, I would have thought that the fuckers were breathing behind me. Like, when you walk into a room, if something spawns behind you or has moved behind you or is shooting behind you, you don't just know, oh, they're behind me. You know exactly behind you where they are. You know they're on my right. I need to turn to them. And it just makes your decision making so much easier and quicker, because you can, without having to look at any sort of mini map or anything like that, you know where all the enemies are just based on audio.
And I think, like, if you look at a clip of Returnal in one of the, especially later on in the game, when you do that big drop down in biome 6, when you land in that room, it's crazy. There's so much going on your screen, but you can hear every single particle. So all the particles, they sound different when they're fired out. You can hear every single one of them. Like, there's so much going on your screen. And by the way, you can see everything that's going on. It is a ray trace enabled game. All of those lighting effects, we should have said this earlier, all of those lighting effects look incredible. You can see everything separately and all together at once, and it's insane. But more importantly, you can hear everything. And that's down to the PS5's chip. The
audio, 3D audio, whatever.
I can't think of what it's called off the top of my head. It's like Vortex or something like that. It's something weird. But you can hear every single enemy, everything that enemy is fired. You hear it all. And it's incredible how good it is.
And then even the weapons, like, not to mention that each weapon, while they have their own unique sound, the perks give each weapon a different sound. So you know what perks you have just based on the sound. Like, did you ever get the carbine with the high cal rounds?
Yeah.
So it changed it from like a high rate of fire to a single like bullet. It's like a but the sound it makes, it's so different and so unique. And to have that in a weapon, like the same weapon frame with a different perk, just sounds completely different.
It's the highest of compliments to say it was as good as Bungie's.
I would go as far as saying it's better than Bungie's in that you had the perk options that could change it. If Bungie had something like Bungie's sound design in a weapon is phenomenal. Yeah. Housemarque's, I think, is I agree, it's up there. I think they probably slightly pipped them just because there's, but again, they have smaller number of weapons, so it's easier to put in that level of detail. But it's just like fair play to them. It's not something people pick up on normally, that a weapon sounds great.
But it's not something that people that the general gamer will pick up on. They're aware of it, and they will subconsciously be aware of it and know it's there and appreciate. But they won't appreciate it. That's what I mean. They'll be subconsciously aware of it, but they won't appreciate. Oh, actually, I get what they've done here. Which the sound design on all of it's fantastic. The other part of the audio, like the whole soundtrack, it needs to mention the soundtrack for this game is brilliant. It's like, it's chilling almost. It's like, I think to steal the phrase that Ralph used, it's like when you're moving through, it's skill up, by the way, Ralph is skill up. When you're moving through the biomes, it's a real kind of sinister soundtrack. It's like it's counting down the moments to your death, I think he said.
Oh yeah.
And each biome has its own soundtrack, has its own unique sounds. We'll get deeper into one particular one in a bit, but when you're moving through it, it's the sound is the audio, the soundtrack is just absolutely brilliant. And each boss as well, in the same way that a Souls game would have. Each boss has its own particular soundtrack, and it's all brilliant.
And even the enemies themselves, because obviously the enemies have their own unique sound design, but even the attacks and the things that they do, if you don't see them, you know, like if you've seen them enough times and the attack patterns, you know by the sound what they're doing. Like there's the turrets, and you can hear them powering up now. There's like when they pop up, they make it and then and you know it's like they're ready to fire. So you don't see them, but you know if something's behind me. And in particular biomes, they have certain attack patterns. So like that's gonna fire straight at me. It's gonna lob something at me. So you know I need to fucking move. So you move, and it's just it makes the game that bit more immersive. That like, and even Celine and her dialogue and how clear it is. I find in a lot of games, character dialogue can be washed out by what's going on in the game. But when you're in combat, like you hear her talking clearly.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that, particularly now, because what I've noticed in like Netflix shows, they must have the same sound designer, because the sound is shite in every single fucking Netflix film that comes out now. That like I can't hear the dialogue over the cinematics.
Yeah, it's kind of muffled.
It's shite. And I really appreciate that, because especially for
have you seen Tenet?
but it's
You wouldn't like it
no.
if that annoys you.
Yeah,
It's quite difficult to hear what's going on.
yeah, no, fuck that. The
Good movie though.
yeah, just subtitle stuff. Um, yeah, I don't think I can praise the audio design enough
No.
and do it justice. You have to listen to it. And I'm glad you feel the same way because you listen through it through your TV. Like,
Yeah, no,
what was
I
your?
like. I think I got lucky with the TV that I bought. That the sound through it is so good.
Mm.
I just got lucky. The sound quality is really good. Now, don't get me wrong. When you put a headset on, you can. I noticed when I'm playing Death Stranding, where one of the characters was walking that direction, and as it went from ear to, I could actually hear it going ear to ear, and then kind of fade away. So I didn't quite have that in Returnal, but I could still hear where every single thing was in comparison to my character, even through the TV.
Will we just touch briefly on? So we have talked about visuals, but I'd like to particularly call out that the game is so color in a really dark and dreary, oppressive world. The game is so colorful. Like,
It's so vibrant. Yeah.
yeah, like the bullets that come at you, like they all. And it's another thing actually even about the gameplay. The bullets, the colors represent their attack patterns.
Yes.
So like red are slow and non-tracking, green are fast and tracking, blue are like aggressive.
Don't red cause malfunctions as well?
Per-
Potentially.
mm, the red that track you slowly
Yes.
cause malfunctions.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is another thing that fucked me up later on in the game. But yeah, like so you learn that each bullet
And purple
has a
can't be dodged through.
Yep.
You don't
So,
get
like,
you don't get the no frames the frame whatever through purple.
yeah, so like having that in your gameplay is great. It's a great gameplay element, but visually it's stunning. Like when you're watching these bullet hells happen,
It's
particularly in the boss encounters, and you're just seeing bullet hell after bullet hell coming. You can't help but look and go, "This is wonderful."
insane. Yeah.
And then you're like, "Sure,
It's wonderful hell.
yeah." And
It's the most colorful death anyone could hope for.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's about that's the way like when I say it's a Souls-like game, that it's the bosses and maybe some of the mini bosses that remind me of that. That in a From Software game, you're learning attack patterns, and the boss that you're fighting will have a tail. They'll wind up to the attack, and you can learn what attack they're about to do. Whereas in Returnal, you're doing it by the color that's coming at you.
Yeah.
And by the way, as an extension, the sound cue as well. That you can hear the attack that's coming. That if you've played that boss a few times, you know by the sound what attack is coming and then what color it's going to be, and you position yourself to dodge it or move through it.
We wouldn't know that because we one-shot most bosses. So.
Well, no, because I played through the game again to get the face fragments. It's fine to get the fragments. And when I did that playthrough, I played the bosses again.
Oh yeah, no, same.
No, I did the bosses a couple times each just to do them again.
Do you have anything more you want to add to visuals and audio?
Not really. Not really. Like, it's undoubtedly an absolutely gorgeous game to look at and to listen to, and just like as a backseat gamer watching it, it's impressive.
You were a backseat gamer. That's how you got into it.
Yeah, I had not that I had no interest in the game. I'd very little interest at the time for the time being, and I was gonna pick it up at some point. But when I watched you play through it, I kind of went, "Oh, I actually love how this looks," and I'd become obsessed with the game, like a lot of people that played it had before I'd even played it.
Yeah. I imagine if the roles were reversed and I'd watched you play it, I would have done the exact same.
And then, how am I so shit at this game? Sorry.
So let's get into the part that is definitely going to be our longest segment, which is the narrative and the character development.
Yeah, I mean, we can probably do character development reasonably quickly, but narrative, we've already touched on what the synopsis of the story is. Celine is an astronaut. She has been drawn to this planet by the white shadow, whatever you want to call it, the signal source is white shadow. She's been, and then crash landed on the planet, and the whole game revolves around trying to unravel the mystery of the white shadow. She's trying to find what the white shadow is, and as part of her training, as I can't get what they're called, but Astra Scouts. She can't leave that planet until she's completed her mission or dies there. But when she dies there, she just respawns. Or Groundhog Days. But the whole narrative of the game is figuring out what is White Shadow. Well, for the first half of the game anyway, is finding out what White Shadow is, trying to track down the source of that. Eventually, she does, or does she? But it's then about her developing her character. It develops the relationship between her and the planet, her and the race that live there, and between her and her mother, which we'll get into that relationship.
Yeah, so as Kev was saying, you know, the premise of the game that you start is you crash land and you want to find out about the White Shadow broadcast, and where the game takes a turn, and this will be full spoilers.
Full spoilers from here.
So when you locate the source of the White Shadow signal, you realize that actually you shot yourself down. So you didn't crash land, you shot yourself down to here. And that the White Shadow broadcast is actually an emergency frequency to the Astra Scouts. So it's almost like you're drawing yourself in to be saved. You know, so all these cycles, you still see yourself. So when you're actually running through the game, you see dead Celine's around. So it can stand to reason that a past Celine shoots you down, so that one will eventually find this emergency broadcast. And you escape Astroport. So you go, you live your life, and Celine grows old and she dies. But when she dies, in whatever it is, like 50 years' time, guess what? The planet wasn't done with her. She goes back in a 50-year cycle, and it's about what is the relationship between Celine and the planet. And that's where we start learning more about her life prior to going to Astroport, and that's where this thing about her mother comes in and going on. And we should mention that in the biomes 1, 2, and 3, you get house sequences, which give you an insight.
By the way, I played this game late at night. Those house sequences scared the fucking shit out of me. Like, I had to play this game with the kitchen light turned on at some points. When I saw a house sequence coming up, the kitchen light went on.
I think that's because it goes from third to first person. You're like, no, yes. This is too like Resident Evil. You're like, I can't do this.
And nothing actually really. There's no jump scares, but it's the tension of it, and it's almost like now the living room TV in my house. It's reasonably big TV, so I was like, this is. I was like, I'm a little bit.
I'm in this room.
Yeah, I'm in this. I'm a little bit shaken up by this.
So
that damn astronaut, man.
Oh, that astronaut. Yeah, that's another thing we didn't mention. There's an astronaut fucking following you. Yeah. So I don't know how far you want to go into this, but
go all the way. All the way.
Yeah, so Axe biomes 4 to 6. So biomes 4 to 6 are actually just biomes 1, 2, and 3. But in 50 years' time, you can see they're the same biomes, but they've evolved and changed over that time. And
is biome 3 the same as 6 though? I didn't get that one.
No, biome 3. Sorry, I should say biome 3 is not the same as 6. 1 and 2 are the same.
1 and 2 are 4 and 5. Yeah, and Celine touches on that when she goes. So biome 1 and 4 are quite clearly the same. They're the same. It's the same forest. You can pick up on that. But when you go into biome 5 for the first time, Celine actually voices out loud, "Oh, it's it's the same geo signal, same coordinates." So kind of like, it's the desert is now full of snow.
Yeah, and it turns from what we thought was, finding the White Shadow to why is Celine trapped on the planet, and through your interactions with the xenoglyphs and finding out more, like as you unlock more glyphs, you can understand more of the pattern. What I really love actually is that the xenoglyphs purposefully mislead you if you don't have enough of the language. So you'll get different meanings depending on the language, and that's really cool. But you learn more about Selene, and it's very strange that Selene seems to be entwined with the planet for some reason. And that becomes clearer as you go through biomes 5 and 6 in particular. And I think, Kev,
as you unlock more of the house sequences.
Yeah, and I think, do you want to take the next part?
In which bit?
Take up from wherever you want there, baby.
No, you're doing a good job. You keep going.
So through the house sequences, you discover more about Celine's past and that her mother, Tia or Taylor, Tia wanted to become was an astronaut. At the time, that's what you're told, is that Tia wants to be an astronaut. But then through other house sequences, you learn that something tragic happened that she couldn't. So Celine took it upon herself to fulfill her mother's destiny and become an astronaut. And I guess really where we should go with this next is it ends with you not really knowing what the relationship is. You know, her mother's had an accident of some sort. And every time you die, you get flashback sequences, so you see things like... I wouldn't know. Well, I know. So you would see things like the rear view, the car's brake lights, or you would see the moon, and you'd see like a lake. So you'd see certain things and tentacles. And when you get to biome 6, you fight a boss called Ophion. And when you go in, it's this mangled squid that has like a humanoid face, a skeletal face in phase 1. When you kill it, it turns into an astronaut. And then the final one is another face, I think. Yeah. So the astronaut one is like, oh, what's going on here? So you beat the boss, and the boss promptly fucks off. I'm not convinced you kill it. It just fucks off and leaves a hole. So you go into the hole, and as you walk up towards the hole, you see this blinding light. And as you round a corner, you see a car with the car lights on. But you can't open the car door, so you walk on. And you see the ichor, which in some of the biomes you see is this giant black liquid that floats in the air. And Celine goes up to it, and this giant squid, actually it looks like the machines from the Matrix. It comes out, and I can't remember what she says to it.
She says, "Did you bring me here?"
Yeah.
Or was I always here? Something along those lines.
Yeah, and the game ends.
Yeah, I was like, why did you bring me here? She's trying to find out why did you bring me here, and the game ends. Yeah.
And the game ends, and if you just stop there, that's it. You're left with zero answers. You don't know any more about what's going on with her mother. So then the game goes into Act 3, and I think, Kev, you can take Act 3 then.
Yeah, so Act 3 it's biomes 1 to 6 through again. You can change from biome 1 or start at biome 4. You can change that wheel which one you want to play through. But your purpose to play through, you have to collect these 6 fragments. Each biome has 1 fragment. And once you've collected all 6 fragments, you get the final house sequence. And in that final house sequence, you get the car keys. So then you have to go back through, fight the boss again. Final boss, you go down to the hole to that previous car that Stephen mentioned. And now you can unlock the car, and that gives you the secret ending. And in that secret ending, it shows the cutscene. Wait, when does it show the cutscene of them driving?
Actually, game ends. That's Act 2, so yeah, that's the part I missed.
Yeah.
So
at the end of Act
ends with
2, it
her
shows
saying-
you the cutscene of it's Thea, who is Celine's mother, driving along. Celine, the child in the back. I assume it's Celine. People argue that in forums, but she says, "Do you see the white shadow?" Tia doesn't. Keeps driving. There's a song playing this whole time, by the way, but there's an astronaut standing on the bridge. Her mother swerves, crashes into the lake, and that's the tragic accident that we spoke about, or that was shown, that was hinted at in the game. It ends there with you seeing a giant squid under the water on Earth. By the way, it's not on this planet; it's on Earth. So that's where Act 3 picks up. Then you get it, goes down. You see the car, and it gives you open the car door, and it gives you the hidden ending where you meet a skeleton in a wheelchair. That is Celine's mother. So you get that hidden ending, and it gives you dialogue to wrap up that story.
You kind of miss you miss a very important part about the skeleton.
What part? I'm really bad for remembering these details.
So I explained that part poorly. So yeah, as I said, the end of Act 2, you get a sequence which is essentially the parts of when you die. You get these flashbacks. So you're driving through. There's a car song on the radio which plays through the game and has some significance. We'll talk about. The young child in the back, we assume is Celine, says to her mother, "Do you see the white shadow?" Obviously has significance to the game. Tia kind of ignores it. Astronaut appears out of nowhere in the road. Tia swerves, goes into the water, and the octopus comes up and appears to save someone from the car. In the hidden ending, you actually go back into the house to you go down to the basement, which has been previously unlocked, and you find a skeleton in a wheelchair.
Yeah, I missed that.
When you pull the skeleton around, Celine recognizes it as her mother, and the skeleton, when you look at it, is pregnant. And throughout the story, there are parts in the house sequences where there's another room dedicated to someone called Helios. And Helios is the name of your ship.
I forgot all this.
So the skeleton, the pregnant skeleton, attacks Celine and strangles her, and Celine says, essentially, I carried your agony with me for all this time. It's time for both of us to let go. So Celine, recognizing that the mother put being an astronaut on her, and Celine has been carrying that guilt with her. But also there's significance there that potentially the accident caused some sort of miscarriage or something to her younger brother, or potentially the younger brother, Helios. And it's this kind of like revelation that when you go back to the game and you go, oh, hold on, like there's been things that have hinted at stuff. So like when you start the game, one of the first things you hear when you leave is abandoning Helios. And you start thinking, hold on, is this a reference to what happens that like the planet is based, and this the other thing as well, she recognizes that the planet is basically here to, this is her home, her family are here, Helios is here, so Tia is here, so this is her home, and that she's not allowed to leave it, and she doesn't want to leave it. She doesn't want to break the cycle.
Over time she
learns that this is basically her home, and she just accepts that fact, and that this is where she is now. And it's just this really open-ended narrative that gives you some sort of closure to a story, but opens up a lot more. So this thing of like, was Tia pregnant? Was it Tia driving the car, or was it actually Celine, and was the person in the back Helios? And I love that about the game, that it just leaves such an open.
Yeah, I think that's where I want to say that as well about the game, that there's no definitive ending here. Like, there's the definitive ending to the game, but it leaves that open question of, well, what I might take from it might be different from what Stephen might take from it. It might be different from what Dylan might take from it if he plays it through. In that, you could take it quite literally for what's happening on your screen is quite literally what the story is. But when you start to dig into it, there's a lot there that really suggests otherwise. That something else could be going on. Celine could be lying in a hospital bed in a coma for the last 50 years, dreaming all of this. She could be in a mental ward in a hospital that she just has lost her brain, that she lost her mind in some incident or something, or there was some trauma that caused her to go fucking crazy. Like there's the car crash, or her mother losing the child to a miscarriage, that she carried that trauma with her and it caused her to lose her mind. And I think that's what I love. I love that about the game, and that yes, there's a very definitive story that we've told you, but it's up to you if you want to take that story with a grain of salt, or what you see is what you got. I really love that about it. And
yeah,
for what it's worth, I accidentally saw the hidden end. No, I accidentally saw the normal ending of the game, Act 2 ending of the game, before I'd even played it. It was when the game had come out. I was like, oh, I'm going to click into a random stream here and just see what this game is about. I didn't know they were running through Biome 6. Because I never looked at it. I saw the final boss fight, and I saw the ending of the game and the credits roll. And I actually forget I don't even know where I was going with this point. But it was when I saw that ending, I know where I go. Where I saw that ending in isolation, I kind of went, why the fuck would anyone play this game for that ending?
Mm-hmm.
Because it made no sense to me. But when you go back and having played through the whole game and then played through the hidden ending, I actually look at it and go, it's a masterpiece. The story they've told and the way they've told it, and the way they, not that they left it open-ended, but they left it open to interpretation. It's brilliant. It's storytelling that generally doesn't come into a lot of gaming, aside from the obvious Kojima type stuff, or in Silent Hills, that sort of stuff, where it does use references, or it does hint at stuff that isn't actually there, or is actually there and you haven't got it. Whereas a lot of games are, and by the way, a lot of PlayStation exclusive games are, here's your story, fucking have it. That's the story you're getting, and we're done. There's nothing open to interpretation. Whereas that's actually something I kind of laugh about, is that, actually, I'll come back to that point, but it's a very different PlayStation, AAA PlayStation exclusive than what we're used to, because of how that story's told.
And one thing that I really liked about it was that, and I think I said this last week about the Destiny lore, that like it's the hidden little bits that you see and recognize but don't pick up as story elements. Yeah. So one of the things I really loved, that like when I read after I completed the game and kind of went through it again, was that it's very clearly shown to us that Celine does not want to be an astronaut. She actually wants to be a sailor. She wants to be like something to do with the sea. And that's really clear because she has an octopus called Octo that she loves bringing with her.
Loki had an octopus named Octo.
Yeah, and that's gone.
He made it into a white shadow.
Mm-hmm. So
fluff.
And having the having seen some of that stuff, then so you realize that the octopus, or the thing that saves the child at the back of the car, is an octopus. Clearly referencing Octo, and that the thing that comes from the iCore is also an octopus-like thing that's trying to show her the way. And it's like when you get to the end of Act 2, it's kind of saying to you, is like, look, there's more for you to learn. You know, I'm your friend. I'm looking after you. I need you to go back and face these demons. And there's just lots of really cool elements that are not told, but they're shown. Even things like, I really like, I copped in the first house sequence the time being stuck in 838. I was like, why is it stuck in 838? And that's the time that the accident happens. And there's lots of really, really cool sequences and pieces that are just put in that house sequence that you're not told anything. Like, they're not interactable, so you just see them. And when someone else puts that together in a coherent, like, this is what that means, you go, fucking brilliant house, Mark. Like that makes like it's the non-storytelling narrative that ties it all together. And if anyone is interested in it, like there's a great series of Reddit posts by someone, I can't remember who it is.
If you
Who go through,
you send it to me, Stephen, I'll put it in the description.
yeah, and it goes through like the Greek mythology of the significance of the name. So Tia, who is the Greek goddess of the moon, who has two sons, Selene and Helios, who are the sun and the stars, and how Helios, how Selene betrays Helios, and like there is this whole narrative behind it that like has significance to the names, and it's just, and they go through things like what is Icor and how could Octo be this and that, and I love that someone goes to that effort. Like the game, as you said, has a definitive ending. Like there's a terrible story to be told, and that like here's a scene that has some sort of context, but really it's not worth it. You know, if you play the game for that ending, you're like, okay, I don't really know much more. But Jesus, the stuff that goes on around it is.
I finally understand what my Leaving Cert English teacher was trying to teach me about poetry.
Yeah.
It symbolizes this. Yeah, there's a lot of symbolic stuff in there. It's really well done.
So what was your? I'm interested now because we haven't actually spoken about this. What was your takeaway from the ending and the implications?
It changes every time I think about it. Like, yeah, it changes every single time I think about it. It really does. I don't know. I really don't know which one I would go with.
Let me throw a few questions at you, that because there's certain things we haven't even talked about here yet. But so, who do you think the astronaut is?
Selene.
So you think that's future Selene going back in time?
In what way?
To cause the accident.
Yes.
Okay.
Not necessarily in the literal sense, because part of me thinks it could all be just happening in her head. But yes, I think if we're taking it as it is timey-wimey bullshit. It's Celine's caught in a time loop to try and not break the cycle, but keep that cycle. Yeah, it's part of the cycle. It's a fucking Selene, Christopher Nolan movie in a game. But go on, sorry.
Is Selene the god or the creator / destroyer that the xenotype species worship?
No. I think she thinks she is, but I don't think she actually is.
Will I tell you what I think?
Go on.
I think she is. I think she, because of her ability to relive and respawn on Astropor, I think she is actually a god to them. She is this eternal being, because if you look at the xenotypes, they become more humanoid later into the games, and they worship the astronaut.
That's a good point.
So I think, and this ties into the story of the downfall of that civilization that's really subtly told, and I'm not going out here saying this is what happened, but Selene is referred to as the creator / destroyer. And what happened was Frike, the first boss, and a few of the other ones.
Which, by the way, was the hardest boss, but go on.
Okay.
It moved the most. It had a melee attack, the rest didn't.
That's true, it did fuck you up big time.
It was the only one that, sorry, just to completely fucking derail your thing for a second. Frike was the only boss that didn't just stand there and shoot at you. It stood there and shot at you, but then also had that melee attack. Now, when I went back and did it again, I no-hitted the thing. It was fine, because he throws down the red ring that spreads out, and as soon as he does that, he gets ready to do a melee attack.
Yeah.
Whereas the rest of them, for the most part, stood there and sent bullet hail at you. And that stuff I found no problem. but it was
Yeah.
the melee caught me off. Sorry, go on, Stephen.
Yeah. So, as I was saying, there's evidence to suggest to me at least that Selene is a creator slash destroyer, particularly because she is eternal on the planet. And I think what happens then is the civilization, there's a splinter group that breaks away who form a hive mind who are trying to destroy her because they see her as the destroyer, whereas the others see her as a creator and worship her, which leads to a civil war. And that's something that, like, I kind of will criticize Housemarque for, is that I would have loved to have explored that narrative more, is like what happened to the planet, and maybe I missed it because of the way they tell the story. But to me, Selene is
what you need to find. You need to find the My Name Is Bife of the Returnal world, and he'll tell you how it is.
Yeah, I need that. I should have become the My Name Is Bife. Yeah, damn. What else was I gonna say? Question wise, so did you know that the skeleton of the mother was pregnant? Did that trigger with you, or did you kind of miss that?
When I saw it on my own game. Yeah. I knew she was pregnant. Yeah, I knew she was pregnant. I knew about the whole Selene and Helios stuff. I knew that the mother was pregnant. I knew the skeleton was pregnant. Yeah.
So, do you think the child in the back of the car is Selene or Helios?
I think the one we see is Selene. But I think I think I read this on a Reddit thread, that when the mother looks in the rear view mirror, she looks at the opposite side of the car, of the back seat.
Oh,
yeah, and that may have been up for debate, but I think in Celine's head, Helios was there, but Helios wasn't there, or he was there and died in the accident, or she was pregnant and died with him there. But in Celine's head, he was in that back seat, which is when she's having that flashback. She sees that he's there, but you get what I'm trying to say.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to watch that back and see what she does. See, I was thinking the child in the backseat is actually Helios, and what kind of triggered it for me was, one, it kind of looks slightly different to Selene, but two, in the credits, in one of the credits is Helios, and they tell you the voice of the actor, which wasn't there, and it's like there's only one scene where that child could possibly have talked, and it's that car scene.
Interesting.
And look, this is why Kevin and I are saying the narrative is great, is that we can have these discussions and kind of
Did you enjoy it as a story, as a standalone story?
If that was delivered to me in any other format, I don't think I would have enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I think that's where you see the Reddit threads that you've spoken about, the people deep diving in, and I think if you don't have the game as brilliant as it is, you don't get people being that obsessive about it. You just don't.
Yeah. But even that they actually have the clues in the game that people could like, that game could have just been delivered without any of those clues there, and you're like, oh, okay.
Or maybe. It could have been delivered the way that Destiny delivered the Grimoire in Destiny 1, that you had to go get it outside the game, and it wouldn't have the same impact if it wasn't given. Now, you do have to go looking for it. You do have to go get those the cryptoglyphs and the ciphers. You have to pick up the audio logs to get all this extra stuff. But it does give it to you if you want it, and if you deep dive into it, it creates a lot of lore. It really interesting lore for that planet and for that story. But I think that's one thing we didn't really say at the beginning, is that it is still that AAA linear story-driven PlayStation exclusive. It is still a linear story-driven exclusive, narrative-driven exclusive, which has the PlayStation stamp mark on it.
Telltale, yeah. It's a Telltale PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah.
I think it's probably, if there's nothing else narratively that you want to talk about, I think it's worth bringing in the other narrative element, which is the song, because you have next gen features, but I think that's something
I think we've already kind of spoken about the next gen features. I don't really think we need to go over that more. We've spoken about ray tracing and the 3D audio, and we've spoken about the haptic feedback. I don't actually think we need to do a designated segment on next gen features.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, but what I am going to do is I'm going to pause the stream for a minute.
Oh.
So moving on to the next segment then, and it's a segment that is a very specific one. I don't think a lot of people actually picked up on this when playing the game, Stephen, because
No,
it's
I
not
didn't.
mentioned in a lot of reviews and stuff. So there's a song by a band named the Blue Oyster Cult, and that song, it's a fairly popular song. It's "Don't Fear the Reaper." I have a bit of trivia to come back to regarding this song in a few
Oh
minutes,
yeah,
actually, that I haven't told Stephen about yet. So Biome 4. For me, no matter how long I have been gaming or how long I will be gaming, I'll never forget Biome 4, the Echoing Ruins from Returnal. Because the whole soundtrack for that biome is "Don't Fear the Reaper" by the Blue Oyster Cult, basically on a loop. And it plays that tune, not the whole thing, it plays a tune, the main part of it, on a loop the whole way through it. And as you get closer and closer and closer to the boss room in this, so you'll hear it over and over again through all the rooms you explore. And when you're making your way around, you kind of go with a spiral staircase. That's not really a staircase, but it's a spiral up to the boss. And as you get closer, the tune gets louder, and it gets louder and louder. And I'd say this was incredible to hear with headphones on, by the way, because it was incredible through the telly, because you could hear it, like, as you moved, it moved. But it got louder until you came face to face with the boss arena. And it was this big, weird, Xeno-like creature crouched over, hunched over, and it was a big organ, like in a church, but made out of, like, what do you call it, the trees, the trunks of a tree, the stem of a tree, or whatever.
yeah.
So it used the natural architecture to make this organ, this massive oversized organ. And the boss, which name's Hyperion, was playing the tune through the organ. And it touches on the song by the Blue Oyster Cult earlier in the game. You hear it in some of the house sequences. You see it in the flashbacks in the car. You see it at the end of the game where they're driving through over the bridge and it's playing on the radio. Celine plays it on the piano at one stage. So the game is kind of wrapped around this song in a way a lot. But Celine arrives at the boss arena. The boss fight starts. The song is playing. It's playing over and over. It's the boss's theme song. Is that tune from "Don't Fear the Reaper"? And Celine is saying to herself, "Did I teach you this song, or did you teach me the song?" And it links back into that narrative of what is actually going on here, that you never really get fully answered. But there's also, Stephen, I don't know if you picked up on it, there's actually in one of the audio logs during the game, one of the audio logs is the opening lyric of the song.
That's what alerted me to, because I got that audio log before going to the boss.
Yeah,
And
same.
it's great because she's just talking and she's like, she just says it so deadpan. She goes,
It's
season
all our
so
time.
weird
All
and
our
weaker.
no, it's all our times have come.
That's it.
Here, but now
but
they're
now.
gone.
And then it ends with Seasons Don't Fear the Reaper, and I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit, I was like, it's that song. I was like, why is that song? And then it was only when I fought the boss and you get that like da, na, 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 na. And I was like, oh shit, it's that song. And then I was like, wait, I've heard this before.
Yeah.
And then I had to go back and watch my VOD and was like, that's the song between Act 3 and 4, like that she plays on the and then I was like, what is going on with this song? I was like, why? And I think the reason people aren't picking up on it being that song, I mean, apart from the audio log being very, very clear, is that it's when you listen to the song, it's like Seasons of Fear. It's like like the song. It's not the melody of the song. It's kind of the outro to that bit at the end where it's It's like da 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 da, and it's that lyrical part. It's not a major part of the song, but it's just those kind of like four notes that play, and I just I'll never stop gushing about how magical it is
Yeah.
for that to be incorporated into a game. And there is actually, I think, some narrative around why that game is there. But yeah, I love that part where she goes, "That melody, did I
Yeah.
teach you or did you teach me?" And it really harkens back to that, like, how long has she been here?
Yeah.
And
And it also touches on the point you made of them worshipping her.
yeah,
That is she the Reaper?
that actually I never even thought of. That's a
Yeah.
really good point. So on the
I
destroyer
think,
profile,
yeah.
yeah,
I think
that's a good
that
one.
it
Yeah.
touches in on that, and that's why they probably chose that song.
But what's funny is that going back to the Greek mythology is that Hyperion is the mother of Selene. So, or is the father of Selene, sorry. So this is touching on actually Hyperion might actually be her dad,
Yeah.
who apparently is actually an organ player.
And would have been the one who played that song, because I'm pretty sure at some point in one of the house sequences, she actually comments saying that her mom didn't like that song.
Yeah.
So it's probably she probably learned that song from her dad, which is even more symbolic stuff throwing in. Like, it's just when you dig into the fine details of the story and the hidden stuff and the symbolic stuff, like, they create these questions and these loops, but then they close off those loops with different outcome. It's incredible when you actually dig into it.
It's
I think the fact that Hyperion is Selene's dad in Greek mythology, that's really that's actually really thrown me, because then that line of "Did I teach you this melody or did you teach me?" It's the whole, well, did I introduce my dad to this song or did my dad introduce me to this song? And now Hyperion, the boss, is playing this. Oh, it's too much.
and
It's too much.
what's and and even at the start of that, like when you wake up in Biome 4 for the first time, she's complaining about the noise. She's like, "That noise, I have
Yeah,
to silence." And basically, the whole objective of Biome 4 is to like it comes up saying, "Silence
the
the
song.
the noise," and yeah, silence the song. Sorry, that's it. And it's when you reflect on, it, you're like, what was she trying to silence? And it could be the guilt of the car crash because the song was playing
Yeah.
during the car crash, and it's like there's all these different things when you go back and look and you go, fucking like wow, like this.
They really they thought everything through.
And I
Like
don't know if
the plot holes aren't, like, it's not plot holes, not the right way, but they've closed off the loops.
yeah, and I
They've
don't know.
introduced something and then they've given that meaning.
Yeah, and the interpretation of that meaning is open, which is great because
Yeah.
I don't think there is a wrong or right way to interpret it. But did you see the PlayStation blog post by
Hassan
the
Cameraman. That's a joke.
oh sorry,
That's
no, I was like
that's the developer of
right,
Abandoned.
oh that's it, no, fuck that, by Harry Kruger, the game director in Housemarque, and they actually go through the Hyperion fight,
I
and they
haven't
talk
read
about
the
it.
part about the fight. Actually, I have to read that. I missed that
Oh,
part.
it's all about, yeah, no, it's about the inspiration for the song or
Mm.
for that boss fight, the musical visual design, like as you said, the trees are the organ and how that is part
And
of the
he's
boss fight.
connected in by the vines on his hands, and as so all the bosses have 3 health bars in the game. So as you break down, as you delete the first health bar, one hand comes away, and he's kind of looser and gets an extra attack. And then when the second
Mm.
health bar goes, he breaks away from it. It's insane. It's so
Um,
like that. Just
I'm gonna,
that boss fight is just like, I know the
oh yeah,
biome. The biome was the same as Biome 1. It's not like they've redesigned the whole biome, but the new elements they introduced with that really amazing boss fight and the song and all that, it just makes it so memorable. And it's all designed around that boss fight, but that boss fight is just one of the most memorable boss fights I've ever had in a game ever.
yeah, no, absolutely, and it's not that it's even a hard boss or anything. Like that's not why it's memorable. it's the world building around it to that point. And what I really loved is that if you've got the 3D headphones on, like I don't know if you picked this up, Kev, but when you're running around, you will like the soundtrack to Biome 4 isn't always the Don't Fear the Reaper melody. Like there is another soundtrack, but every so often, but when it kicks in, if you have the 3D headphones on, you can actually tell where the boss room is.
Yeah.
So it will like go you'll hear.
I could even tell that through my TV.
Like that's phenomenal. That sound design is like that's telling you basically this is the way to the boss room. Yeah. So if you didn't know where you're going, you could listen to the sound and go, okay, I'm heading that direction. I'm gonna send you the blog post to link in as well because it's a fascinating read.
Lot of links have to go in this week.
Yeah. But even like what I love in that blog post in particular is, and I noticed it in the fight, is on each phase ending. When you go to the next phase, like you hear he misses a note, but not only that, the vines break.
Yeah.
And as he breaks free, he's getting like liberated from the organ.
Yeah.
And he'll come out and he'll attack. But then he always goes back to goes back for the comfort of the organ. It's like, this is where I'm safe. Even though his back is turned to you and he's not looking at what you're doing. It's like it's that comfort of like I need to go back to my organ. And
I also think it's worth noting as well that the bullet hail, the colourful nonsense comes out of the organ. So each of the individual organ pipes, I don't know if that's the correct name of it, but that's where he shoots you from. So they shoot up out of it, and then it's incredible. It's just
and incredible. Then just finishing it then, and it's like she just says silence, and then it's like
finally silence. I think it's finally silence. Finally silence.
Yeah, but there's even that like little bit of like, is this what I wanted? Because there's this kind of like part where that goes, did I do the right thing by creating this silence? And it's just, it is probably one of the best details put into any game ever.
It's one of the most memorable ones, definitely. Anyway,
yeah,
I can't think of other ones.
No, and neither can I.
Off the top of my head,
it's one that will always, always, always stick with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so, and every so often I'll just in my head I'll hum that part, like that part when you go into the boss room and the song just changes into that. Like, oh, I love it.
Do you want my bit of trivia on it?
Yes, I do. I've been dying for like 24 hours to find out what it is.
Okay, so patch notes came out for Cyberpunk's patch 1.3 yesterday.
Yeah.
I won't get into it. They're fixed in loads. They've made lots of improvement. That's all great. I only realized yesterday. So, Don't Fear the Reaper is the soundtrack for Boss Fight 4 or Biome 4 in Returnal. It's in Cyberpunk. All of the quests, I don't know if you're aware of this, Stephen, but in Cyberpunk 2077, all of the quests are titles of real world songs that the developers at CD Projekt Red thought Johnny Silverhand, who is Keanu Reeves' character, would have been a fan of. So it's a lot of pop punk stuff. It's a lot of metal, heavy metal, hard rock, that sort of stuff. So every single quest in Cyberpunk is named after a real world song title. The title of the secret ending mission, of the final mission of the secret ending, is Don't Fear the Reaper.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I only it only registered with me yesterday reading the patch notes. I went, yes, the final mission where you go. It's the one where you...
Don't spoil it.
No, I'm saying nothing. But it's the one where you have to do the very specific things for.
Okay.
You might want to read up on it if you want to if you do it, go for it. But there's 4 endings that you get just by playing the side missions. But there's one ending you have to do very specific things to get, and that's the one that's titled Don't Fear the Reaper. And it fits
Okay.
well. It fits in with what goes on. But I just thought it was brilliant. Here's 2 games from the last, say, 6 months in between their 2 releases.
Don't fear the Reaper. innit?
That song was relevant in both games. And I just thought that was incredible. There's
really
a bit
cool.
of trivia for you.
That is cool.
Right. Do you have anything else to gush about Biome 4 and Don't Fear the Reaper?
I have plenty, but I'm gonna leave it. If anyone wants to talk to me, they know where my Twitter handle is.
Right. I think the main part, last main part of this conversation is, it's just ask that question. I have opinions on it. You're gonna have opinions on it, and other people would have very different opinions on it. Is Returnal a hard game? Stephen, do you think Returnal is a hard game before I say something very elitist? That's the question.
No.
Is Returnal hard? There was a lot of discourse, a lot of dialogue when the game came out that it was too hard, it was too challenging. It's a PS exclusive, it shouldn't be this hard. It's a $75, $80 game. It's too hard. And it's the conversation that rears its ugly head every time From Software releases a new game. It's difficulty in games. Are they too hard? Is this too hard? I'm not going to say that Returnal isn't a challenging game, but is it a hard game? Because it hasn't got a difficulty slider. And I want you to say what you think first. I know we've spoken about it, but I want you to give your opinion. Is it a hard game?
Simple answer, no. It is not a hard game. So there are elements that are punishing, and there are elements that are downright cruel. But the game is not a hard game. So by default of not having a difficulty slider and them saying it's a challenging game, to me that kind of puts it within the Souls-like format. So on a scale of Souls-like games, it's piss easy compared to some of the things you come against. Now, as someone who probably has never played it, the game will be a challenge, but it's only a challenge until you master it. Like in any Souls game, until you master what the game wants you to understand about its gameplay, it's how you approach it. But the game itself is not a hard game, as you said. The 2 probably most viable weapons are 2 weapons you can pick up straight from the get-go.
They're the first 2 weapons you get, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah. But there are really cruel and punishing elements that make the game unnecessarily more challenging. And one of them was a reason why I didn't purchase the game day one. Which is that it doesn't have a save feature in the middle of a run. So you have to put the game into rest mode, or you just die and lose your run. That really, when I read that and I saw the reviews and people were going on about it, that really put me off. It's like, I don't want a game like that. That's unnecessarily difficult. It's unnecessarily cruel. I will hold my hand up and say I'm wrong. That works so well in that game. Now, obviously, you can get fucked in rest mode, and look, there should be some sort of protection against that. But in the context of the game, that works. It's not an unnecessarily cruel thing to do, but it can be quite punishing. But no, look, the game, for me, as someone who's always said they're a casual gamer, that game is not difficult. It is not a difficult game in any way, shape, or form. It has cruel elements, but it is not a hard game. What do you think? I know what you think. Without even asking you, I know what you think.
Okay. So, I'm going to comment on a couple of things you said first before going into my own. Mainly around the lack of a save. So, when the game first came out, all I saw on thing was, I can't save my game, I want to do this, I can't save my game, or I had my game in rest mode and I lost my run because of that. I'm gonna touch back. When I had finished the game and I was going for the platinum trophy, which is the only actual hard part of the game, because it's RNG based. I was running from the beginning of the first biome to the end of the second biome in 5 to 6 minutes. Mm-hmm. So, I think people... I think this goes back to the way we play a lot of other games, in that people get very sentimental with their save files. Or in Destiny, we get very sentimental with our weapons or our armor. Or we have, I don't know, we have an Ace of Spades with 10,000 PvP kills on it. And we don't want to lose that because whatever. And we lost our vaults at the beginning of Destiny 2 and everyone lost their minds. But I think the way we play games, we get very sentimental about our save files or the gear we've unlocked. Or if you look at an Oblivion or a Skyrim, the character that you've leveled up and how you've done it. And I think Returnal's system of being a roguelite, where you start your run, you do your run, and you get as far as you get, and then you start again. It asks you to give up that sentiment. So you could be having a good run from Biomes 1 to 3, you could have all the weapons you want, and you could die and have to go back to the start, or you could have to leave and turn your game off because you have to go to work or something. The runs, and this was something that was lost on me before I played the game. So having not played the game, I saw these complaints and went, oh yeah, that's bullshit. Why, like, people should be able to put the game down and move. When you get to grips with the game's mechanics and how the game works, going on a run from biomes 1 to 3 or 4 to 6, you can go through that in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. If you go through every room and explore every corner, of course it's going to take you 4, 5, 6 hours to go through an act. But when you learn what I want to take, what gun I want to take, what ability I want to take, what artifacts I want to get, what upgrades I like having, once you learn what you like using, those runs become much, much shorter. Like, if I was to sit down and play Returnal now, I'd finish it in an hour. I would go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in an hour and a half maximum. So I don't think, having played the game, I don't think that save is actually required anywhere in it. It's really not. And actually, it's something we haven't really spoke about is performance, because games generally perform fantastic on PS5. There's no point really talking about their performance. But the one time we both noticed performance got noticeably worse was when you have a 4, 5, 6 hour run going. That once you went over maybe 3 hours of run, the game has remembered. I think this is me being an armchair developer. This may not be how it actually works, but it's like the game has loaded in everything up to that point, and the more it has loaded in, the more strange your console becomes and performance starts to drop a little bit. So the game doesn't actually want you to go on big 5, 6 hour runs. It wants you to go through biome 1, kill the boss, get as far through biome 2 as you can, and if you die, that's no problem. You start back at biome 1, you get a couple of pieces of gear, and then you go into biome 2, because it gives you the weapon proficiency boost as soon as you get in there. So the game isn't designed to go from that when you die in biome 2 or 3 or 5 and 6, that you spend half an hour going through biome 1 again, and then half an hour going through all of biome 2. The game doesn't want you to do that. The game is saying, right, you've beat this biome. Get a gun you like, or get a little bit of upgrade, and then go back into the next biome and continue to play it. So the save file thing actually isn't a legitimate complaint, in my opinion, anymore. Having not played the game, I thought it was. But having played it, it is not necessary. Would it be a nice quality of life feature? Of course it would. But I don't think it's a legitimate complaint. Now I'll go on to, is Returnal hard? And I'm also going to say no. It has challenging aspects. So, the enemies in Returnal can be split into 3 different types, I think. And then there's a subtype in one of them. So you've got your trash mobs. And they are there to increase your... I forgot the name of it again.
Your adrenaline.
Your adrenaline. They're there to increase your adrenaline, upgrade your weapons, and keep the room from being boring, because otherwise they'd be very empty. You've then got majors, is what I'll call them, because it's a Destiny term, or you've got mini bosses. And they can be split into 2 types. You've got your slow moving ones, and you've got the fast moving ones. Now they all act in the same way. They all send out bullet hail. They all have close range attacks. The slow moving majors are not a problem because you just back up and you shoot them at range. You put yourself behind the wall and you can drill them down. And then I'll come back to this middle type. And then you've got your bosses. And the boss fights they don't really move a whole lot. It's a whole lot of bullet hail. But if you focus on staying alive, you can stay alive. It's those fast-moving majors or mini-bosses that are the only real challenging aspect of the game, in my opinion. And that's because they act in such a different way to everything else in the game. Everything in the game kind of fights you at range, and it's up to you to close the gap if you want to fight at close range. But those fast-moving ones, the sentients are the main ones that have the bullet hail. They fucking throw everything at you. And then they melee you as well. And they act in a totally different way to everything else in the game so that you can be caught off guard by them. So, moving backwards a little bit to, is Returnal hard? I think it can be hard if you are not willing to embrace the game. So the game, if you try play the game like a Call of Duty or a Destiny or a Last of Us or anything, literally any other fucking game, you were gonna have a hard time. Returnal asks you to play on its terms and learn what those terms are. And if you are willing to embrace playing the game on its terms, you can then twist it to suit your playstyle the way we both did. You moved a hell of a lot, whereas I was very methodical about, I'm going to go into this room. The enemies are coming from that direction. I'm going to position myself here so that I can see both lanes. I'll kill whatever comes down here. I'll kill whatever comes down here. And then I'll reposition and take out the next wave or the bigger one or whatever way I'll do it. So Returnal asks you to play on its own. It's in a way, it's the same as a Dark Souls or a Bloodborne or a Sekiro. It asks you to play on its terms and put aside how you generally would play a shooting game. It's, I've got to hit all my headshots. I've got to hit every shot. I've got to kill that enemy as fast as possible. That's not how Returnal plays. Returnal flips that. It is not about hitting every single shot. It is about aiming at your target and making sure you keep fire on them to take their health down. But the main focus is avoiding what they send at you. And it's about continually, it's about doing a couple of things. It's about moving. It's about watching what's going on to react to it. And then finally it is about doing damage yourself. But the damage comes after the first two. And if you're willing to play Returnal on the terms it sets out for you, it is not a hard game in any way. It is, I'm not going to say easy, because there's challenging aspects to it. But if you're willing to embrace it and say, okay, I've learned your systems, I've learned how you work, here's how I work, and here's how I'm going to work in your systems, it becomes a very straightforward game. Like, I'd say if you watch the way I played Returnal, you'd probably find it fucking boring. Apart from the boss fights, because they're just a spectacle. I played through Returnal very boring. It was, I'm going to stand here, I'm going to strafe left and right, and I'm just going to take down...
Platform.
Or jump off platforms. But I'm going to strafe left and right and just take down whatever ads come at me. Or if it's the ones that fire along the floor, I will jump and keep firing. And I will jump and keep firing. Oh, the major in the area is up my grill. I'll reposition to the opposite side of the arena and start again. If you're going to stand there or you're going to run and gun and you're going to just try to be fucking Rambo, this game will fucking punish you. It will say, no, that is not how you're playing me. Go back to the start of Biome 1 or 4 and come back to me when you've learned your lesson. But if you're willing to say, okay, I see what you want me, I see how you want me to play this, the game will be nice to you. So, no, I do not think Returnal is a hard game. I do not think it needs a difficulty slider. I do not
Oh,
think the design of the acts 1 and 2 with biomes 1 and 2 and 3 where you go back to the start of biome 1 having died in biomes 2 and 3, I do not think that is punishing, because I think without that it would be a very short game.
I actually think it would be more punishing without that, because imagine if you started in, so you die in biome 3 and you start back in biome 3.
Well, what
You
people
don't
would
have
want, but what people would want is to keep their abilities, keep their weapons.
But like that makes it way too easy then. Like the whole point is that you lose a certain amount.
It also takes away. It would also detract from the narrative of the game. That Groundhog Day, timey wimey bullshit. Like I think the way the game is designed works for the game very well, and
it's perfect.
I would not like for it to be any other way.
No, and what I will say around the difficulty is, depending on how you play, like Kev and I both said we didn't find the game difficult. I struggled hard on Biome 5. You didn't. You breezed through it. I
hated
struggled.
Biome 2. I hated Biome 2.
And Biome 2 to me was one shot. Like it was.
I couldn't stand Biome 2 because you were so underpowered in it.
Yeah, you see, I
found it really boring, but by the time I got to Biome 5 and 6, I had the portal beam, I had the void beam, I had all that nonsense that it was just kind of like, and I gotta stand here and watch you all die.
Yeah. But for me, like the part of Returnal that was difficult was Biome 5, and not because Biome 5 I think is probably the cruelest biome in the game, because as we said earlier on, there's no boss fight. There's 3 rooms with three routes that you have to take and get a key, and you need the 3 keys to unlock the door to bring you to Biome 6. But if you die, which happened to me, I died with 2 out of 3 keys, and I had to go back and do it all fucking again. And
see, that didn't happen to me, so I didn't have that. That would have been demoralizing.
Yeah, and I said this to Kev before, but what really fucked me over is there's a flying enemy in number 5, and I hate them. I was just not able to control them, and that's because I run out and kind of run, and that just aggroed more, and I said it to Kev. There's a message in my WhatsApp somewhere where I said, when you get to Biome 5, don't play it like a Dark Souls game, because at that stage I was getting pissed with it. So I started doing the runs where I just do my boss run. I was like, I'll just run, get the key, go to the next room, run, get the key. I know what's coming up. I just need to avoid it. And they just kept fucking getting me.
Yeah.
And then I took Kev's approach and went, right, back against the wall, bring things to me, take them at a range, and then just kill them one by one as they come. And it was that methodical part that worked in Biome 5. And that was me having to adapt to the game, with the game going, bitch slapped me going, you're not playing this the way you're supposed to. Go back and fucking learn your lesson. And I didn't for about 30 deaths.
The game asks that of you, to play it on its terms. And if you are willing to play on its terms, you can then tweak that to suit your playstyle or to suit how you have fun. But if you don't play on the game's terms, it will punish you.
Oh, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
But we're the 2 of us are in agreement. It's not a hard game. There are punishing aspects.
I don't think there's punishing aspects. I think there's challenging aspects, but I don't think. I think like a Soulsborne game can be punishing. I didn't think anything in here. I think the only punishing part of this was getting that fucking platinum trophy.
Well, that's another fucking thing that we'll just briefly touch on. Games should not have trophies, especially the platinum trophy, tied to RNG. No, you actually went through it and got the platinum. I am not fucking arse, and I love this game. I am not touching that again. So,
I just to touch back on other games to clarify my point on this. When I finished playing Final Fantasy VII Remake last year when it released, I had this kind of empty feeling for a few days afterwards, but like, oh, I'm done now. Like, I was looking forward to that so much, and I'm done now. And when I played Cyberpunk 2077 over Christmas, I had the exact same thing. It was, I've waited all these years for this game, and I loved Cyberpunk. I wasn't someone that was disappointed by anything in that game, and I was fortunate. But I had that same emptiness that I've waited so long and I'm done now. If I'd played through Returnal and just done acts 1, 2, and 3, hidden ending, and left it, I would have left with that exact feeling. But by the time I had got the Platinum Trophy, which is tied to RNG, because you have to get a specific room to spawn in specific biomes, and it's the same 2 rooms that everyone gets left with at the very, very end in Biome 2, I think. Yeah, Biome 2. By the time I got my Platinum Trophy, I just wanted to uninstall the game off my console.
Which you did.
Which I did. So I look back on Returnal with slightly less favorable opinion after getting the Platinum than I did before going for the Platinum.
Yeah. So
And it's just because of
I think that's probably where you can go. Returnal's a hard game if you're doing that, because it's just punishing and cruel.
See,
and
it's not hard. It's repetitive, and I think that's where the hard comes in. And I think that's actually the point that I missed making. If you're not embracing to play it on the way it wants you to play, and you're trying to know or one life the whole game, and you're trying to God mode it or Rambo it, and you're getting frustrated at deaths because you have to repeat Biome 1. I think approaching it with that mindset of, oh, I've died, I've got to repeat something I've done already. No, you haven't done it already. You've beaten the boss, but the part you haven't done yet is beating the next biome. And you use Biome 1 as a quick run through to get back to Biome 2. But if you're not willing to embrace that and see it as look, I died, I'll be back in Biome 2 in the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it could get repetitive. And that feeling of repetitiveness could lead to frustration or boredom or whatever way you want to say. And that's where I think it gets hard.
Yeah.
It's when because of how you're approaching the game. This is very philosophical, but because of the way you may approach the game, you're making it hard for yourself because you're making it a less enjoyable experience. Whereas the way I would have looked at it is like, oh fuck, I died. Start it. It's fine, no problem.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what you call them, the devil, big round jokes with the devil things in it, where you can attune yourself to the biome you're in. I can't think of what they're called. You know what I'm talking about, though. It gives you a free res.
Oh, yeah. It's just a resurrection device.
Yeah. I didn't know what that did until Biome 6.
Because you never went into one?
No. I used it every single time I saw it. I went, I'll use this, whatever it does. I don't know. It was only I died at a point in Biome 6 before. Those big swooping motherfuckers? I died to one of those. I went, there's my run. And then Celine stepped out of that thing. I went, that's what they do! I just hadn't died after using one. So, I'm not some fucking... I don't think I'm some absolute elitist god gamer. I know I'm good at games. But would I say this is hard? No. God of War on Give Me God of War difficulty is way harder than this.
Yeah, I won't touch that now.
God of War on the second difficulty down was harder than this.
I even found God of War normal hard. Like, if you don't learn how... Yeah. So
that's the answer to my question. Is Returnal hard? No, not if you're willing to embrace the game as the game is. If you try and force other games onto it and the way you play other games, it could punish you. It wants you to play it in a certain way, and if you are happy to embrace the way it wants you to play it, it is not difficult. It is actually very straightforward and a very enjoyable experience.
One which I highly recommend.
I repeated myself several times in that argument. And
that's fine.
But
you were trapped in a cycle. It's fine.
It's trapped in a cycle. I looking back on the whole discourse about Discord about how difficult it is, and I saw all the tweets in the week after it launched about, oh, I'm still on Biome 1. And like, looking back, I don't understand that. I don't understand how someone could get stuck like that if they listened to what the game was fucking telling them. Like, unless you were trying to just Rambo everything and you weren't playing the game as it's designed, then I get it. But if you were just standing there and letting shit, like, none of the particles outside of boss fights are particularly fast traveling. Everything is very much predicted what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
The only difficult part is the melee attack.
Well, I would say even if you have multiple enemies shooting, like, the faster tracking stuff at you and you just get caught between them, like, oh shit. But yeah, the melees are the hardest part.
But I played it the way I'd play a Dark Souls or a Bloodborne. Yeah. I see an enemy, I drag him away from the pack. I go to the next enemy and drag them away from the pack. Now, in some situations, you end up with 3 or 4 or 12 shooting at you. But if you position yourself well, you can manage that. And it's about managing the room as opposed to rushing to the next room, rushing to the next room, rushing to the next room, and getting frustrated with a death. If you die, you die. Dust yourself off and get on to the next one. Nobody finished this game with 0 deaths on the first try.
Yeah. And yeah, like, look, it's not.
Leave your fucking ego on the ship.
Yeah, abandon it with Helios.
But it's the same as any game. It's the same. If you approach the game with an ego that I'm gonna one-shot this whole thing, you're gonna get pissed off. Whereas if you approach it as a learning curve, well, I'm gonna struggle for the opening segment, but I'll get better. And maybe after 2 hours, I'll understand how the game works or whatever. If you approach it and be willing to learn, same with any game, you'll get better. If you approach it with I'm gonna god mode this, and if I die, I'm gonna punish my monitor. That's just fucking daft.
Yeah. No, look, I think there's not much more to say in that. I think we both agree. It's not a hard game. And look, if you are someone who genuinely struggles with the game, the advice still stands. Learn, like, reflect on how you play the game. Are you playing it your way, or are you playing it the game's way? Because there is a specific way. And if you're listening to this and you want to pick it up, or you've played it and put it down because it's too difficult, the number one thing in this game is learn how to dodge and continuously fire. If you do those 2 things at the same time, nothing will be a problem.
If trying to hit that perfect overload every time is fucking you, forget about the overload.
Yeah, so what
if you've got to wait for 3 seconds for the gun to reload? Just dodge, keep moving, and not rushing around like fucking it's chicken run and you're trying to escape your coop. Move. Purposeful movement, side to side, keep strafing. Jump. If you see something coming at you, jump over it. If you have a wall of shit, dodge through it. You can dodge through everything that's not purple.
And to be fair, like, even on the bosses, like, if you look back at my first 3 clears, like, they're first time clears, and if you watch the enemy patterns, like, the bullet hells that they send at you aren't particularly fast. Like, a lot of them have telegraph movements, and you can get out of the way. If you're somewhat quick to react, you'll get out of the way easily. The hardest one is probably in, like, I think the hardest one for me was in Biome 6. It wasn't even a bullet hell, it was Ophian's hand. It was just too slow. It kept just... No, literally, its hand, it just left it on the ground too long after I dodged something, and I kept fucking walking into it. I was like, what is going on? It's like, I'm dodging all this shit, and I just keep walking into this bullshit.
No, I never had that.
Yeah, I just kept walking.
Usually because I moved to the opposite side of the arena to continue my fight. If you watched my boss fight, as soon as his hand came down, that's when the purple stuff starts spreading out, and they overlap each other. I'd jump into the opposite one to move to the opposite side.
But no, not a hard game.
No, it's really not. Yeah. Just to embrace its systems.
I think the only part we didn't really discuss about
the game and its systems is the artifacts and malfunctions and stuff like that. So you can get malfunctions or you can get artifacts that give you bonus stats or but also take away stuff. I don't think we really get too bogged down in it because it can be a bit boring. But if it gives you health, if it gives you abilities, if it takes away stuff, leave it alone.
If you get one that messes with your cooldown, get rid of it instantly.
Yeah. Especially your dodge cooldown.
Yes. Yeah. If you can't dodge, if you don't have your instant dodge
is your friend.
Yeah, just get rid of it, or even just wipe.
It's so just don't wipe. It's something I thought about there, Stephen. That I just thought about. We were discussing it when you were talking about how you played it compared to how I played it. I played it in the same way I played. You said I played Sekiro, in that I'd get my attack and run away. I'd get my attack in, and that was the Ishin Sword Saint fight. Where it was quite clear I was playing with an MNK because I'd get in, I'd get my attack, and then I'd just pivot on a 180 and run.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I played Returnal. I played it very methodical, very boring to watch. For the most part, boring to watch because of how slow I played certain things or did certain things. But it kept me alive. It kept me alive.
Can't argue with the results. Whereas I was running in, like if I could see enemies in front of me, I'd stay there, strafe left and right, and kill them. Or if I could see an opening in another area, I'd like run in behind them, get them from behind, see what else is around. I
never did that.
See, I was just mental with it, and it worked for me because I'm quick to react that way. But it led to some unnecessary deaths as well.
Yeah,
so
I never did that. So yeah, PS exclusive discussion. This is just really one point that just before Returnal launched. There's a couple points. Just before Returnal launched, there was an article.
I gotta put out that this is your thing, by the way. This is something you've been hung up on for a long time.
I'm not necessarily hung up on it, but there was the comments that PlayStation and Sony were pushing. They'd only push their big hitters. They wanted those big AAA Hollywood style mega hitters in the likes of Last of Us or God of War or Horizon that they got the focus, and that Spider-Man, yeah. And if you and this is the part I'm hung up on. If you look at all those PS exclusive games, they're all fantastic games. Most of them are fantastic games, but they're all designed in quite. There's a template. There's a very clear PlayStation template that's been developed over the last generation, over the PS4. I'd actually go back as far as the PS3. So from the PS3 to PS4 generation, there was a template. And I think it's easy to see, PlayStation have that template, and they push their stuff into that. And there was the article or the interview that criticized the way PlayStation did that and do a lot of that. And when Returnal came out, and having played Returnal was a giant big middle finger to all of that. Because it was PlayStation putting faith in Housemarque, who were an independent-ish company at the time. They were a second party. Their first party now, obviously, they've been acquired, but it was PlayStation saying, "Oh, we trust you to make the game you want to make." And it came out, it's a PS exclusive that plays nothing like any of those big hitters, Last of Us, God of War, Uncharted, Horizon, Spider-Man. It's nothing like any of them. It was a big, huge lamau at that statement. I think a lot of those PlayStation exclusive games, look, I've played most of them. I'm gonna say I've played all of them off the top of my head. No, I haven't played all of them. I haven't played like Days Gone, stuff like that. But I've played most of them, and I've enjoyed all of them. But reskin isn't the right word, but they are just different skin versions of the same thing. And it works. It works. Yeah. It works. It's making Sony fucking billions upon billions. It's selling millions of copies of games, and it works. But Returnal was an absolute breath of fresh air as an exclusive on PlayStation. And it's the first game I've played that feels next gen, that feels truly next gen. I thought Ratchet and Clank did, but no, this is a step beyond. This game would not be possible without the next generation of hardware. Or, by the way, the RTX cards, if it was on PC, obviously it would work because graphics cards are PCs are that much more powerful. This game would not have been a good experience on a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One for that matter. But yeah, I just wanted to make that point that it was a breath of fresh air, and GG's, kudos, congrats to Housemarque for doing that, and GG's to Sony for trusting them and hopefully rewarding them. I don't know if time will tell if it was a reward that they were acquired by fucking PlayStation.
Yeah.
We'll see what they do next. They could be the next Bend Studios.
True. But look, I think we're just come to 3 hours. We need to wrap this up.
Yes.
I have master's presentations in the morning that I have to
fun. I'm getting tomorrow.
Oh, yay! Finally, start licking each other again. So,
do your battery stick to you yet? Sorry, move on. Sorry, go on.
I know we don't like giving scores and stuff like that, but final verdict on Returnal for you, whatever that takes the form of.
If you have a PlayStation 5, go out and get this fucking game. Because there's not much more on your PlayStation 5 that is as good as this yet. There's quite a few things that are very good. This is the first next-gen feeling game. And that is if you don't think this is your cup of tea game. I didn't think it was my cup of tea game. Stephen didn't think it was his. And we both... It's probably... It's my game of the year so far.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I can't see anything knocking it off that throne.
No.
If I was to give it a score, I don't like scores, but it'd be a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
I think judging from the way people score things, if it was to get a score, it's a high. It's a 9, a 9.5. It's a high. I'd rate it very highly. It's the best PS5 game that's out at the moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, and look, I echo all those thoughts. I think if you have a PS5, you owe it yourself to buy this game. It has been on sale twice since it came out, so it will go on sale again. If you
I
don't
do have a
own
comment to make about that actually in a minute.
About what?
The discussion around, oh yeah, this game kind of interests me, but it's not worth this much because of this. Like, fuck off. A game is worth whatever you're willing to fucking pay for it. Oh, I'm interested in this game, but not for 80 quid. Fuck off. Like, shut the fuck up.
Well,
stop trying to justify something by the price of it.
I would never say a game is worth a certain amount of money. Like, to me, there's a price of admission that I will put on a game and go, okay, look, for me, for Returnal, I was like, I don't have €80 that I'm willing to drop on this game because I don't know if I'm going to like it.
Mm-hmm.
It went on sale, I bought it. I can confidently say now, in hindsight, if I just travel back in time and say to past me who was looking at this game day one, I say 80 quid. It's like, buy the deluxe edition for 90 quid.
Yeah.
Give them the extra tenner. It is worth it. Like,
yeah.
And I don't know, like, you clearly don't agree with this argument, but like, I do say that there is a price for admission to it. And I think anyone who has money and kind of is concerned around it, you're right to query that. Okay. I don't think you're right to query
I phrased my statement wrong. I don't like the thing saying this game is not worth €80.
Yeah,
I don't like that. I don't like that statement. I appreciate the statement of, oh, this interests me. I don't know if it's my cup of tea. I'm not gonna get it at full price because it's a risk, and I don't have €80 to risk. I appreciate that. It's the statement of, looks cool, not worth 80 quid. I hate that shit.
Yeah,
that is bullshit.
I get that
argument. Now, maybe that's a bit of a pride thing. They don't want to say, look, I'm interested, whatever, but I can't afford it right now. And maybe that's what it is. But I don't like the whole, it looks cool, but no, it's not worth that much money. Like,
No.
fucking like I do appreciate that money doesn't grow on trees, and someone might not want to drop 80 quid on something they may not like. They'd rather drop it on, I don't know, the new Call of Duty because they know I'll play. No, but I've played the last 15 Call of Duties and I've liked them, so I'm gonna buy the new one. I get that. I do get that, and I don't want to sound like fucking too upper class and rich motherfucker, and I'm gonna. No, you can't buy that. You have to buy it for that price. No, I'm not trying to be that dickhead. I'm just saying I don't like that statement of it's not worth this. Fuck off. Like
I don't think you can make that statement without playing the game. I think if you play the game and you complete it through and you say phenomenal game, but you know what? It's too short. It's it's buggy as hell. It's not currently as it stands, it's not worth 80 quid. Like wait for it to go on sale. I think you can make that argument when you
I agree with that. I do agree with that.
I don't think you can make that by looking at a trailer. Like when we both saw the trailer, we're like, oh, interesting. And then all the information came out and went, no, that's not worth 80 quid to me because it doesn't sound like my cup of tea.
And you know what? I thought it wasn't my cup of tea because of how those arguments were framed. And having played the game, I think all those arguments were total fucking bullshit. And it goes back to journalists. My brother showed me a clip of Alex Ferguson, the ex-Man United manager, the other day, that he had a rant at a bunch of journalists saying, your job is to tell the truth. My job is to manage a football team and get the best out of these players. Your job is to tell the truth. And I think there's a big problem in journalism, and it's not a new problem. It's always been a problem. A lot of the time, they're not telling the truth. They're telling the story that gets the most traffic onto their site. And if creating an agenda or running with the agenda that Returnal's too difficult, it hasn't got the same. If they can get more clicks by saying that, that's why they're gonna say it. And it goes back to the whole listen to the reviewers that you. So I go with Skill Up. I love Skill Up's reviews. Even when I disagree with them, I can see where he's coming from or what he's getting at. Even when I disagree with him, I can still agree. I can still say, I get the point you're making. I will make an informed decision. I'm trying to think of other ones there that other people that do good reviews. But the clickbaity nonsense is what turned me off buying this game quicker than I did.
And believe it or not, it was actually Skill Up's review that turned me off it. Because
it was Skill Up's review that sold me on it. Well, apart from you playing
it. No, because Skill Up is very good at, like, Ralph has a great way of reviewing games, and I trust the process he goes through, and
it's
I trust
methodical.
And I trust that he doesn't put in a lot of hyperbole in it, and that he's not just using like buzzwords. I'm like, okay, I get what you're saying, and I appreciate it from what you're trying to tell me. I think he blew out of proportion because he put a big kind of caution on, like, this is an issue with the game about the rest cycle, that you can't save anything. He put that up, and that threw me off completely. And I think it was slightly disingenuous. I think if he had framed it saying, look, this is something people have been talking about, like all the journalists were talking about, if he said, this is something you're going to see a lot of, let me tell you from my experience, but maybe this wasn't his experience, but this is not actually an issue.
Do you know why I think it was framed the way it was framed?
Go for it. Possibly.
A lot of reviewers not changed their method, but have altered it ever so slightly because of the backlash on reviews of that game.
Yeah.
And that is potentially why, but I get what you're saying.
But that's because I was worried about the game anyway, on whether it would be my cup of tea. And for someone I trust to have actually put that out there, and for me to go, no, that's not for me now, definitely. So that put me off, as well as all the clickbait shit, but I ignore a lot of that. But when everyone is consistently harping on the same message, you're like, okay, this must be an issue. And
Yeah,
it's not. It really isn't.
no, it's really really not. It's really not. The game does not need the stuff that people were saying it needs. It needs
Yeah, it's a
patience.
nice to have.
It needs patience,
Yeah,
and not even a
yeah.
lot of patience. It just needs learn its systems, learn how it works, learn what it wants you to learn, and then it's a walk in the park.
But you know what? This goes back to the story of the game. What it needs is forgiveness. It needs you to let go and understand. Like, you need to just accept that you're going to die, you're going to lose your stuff, but that's not the end of it. You just pick yourself back up like Celine does, and you just carry out your task.
Look at Stephen
And
peeling back the layers.
peeling back the layers. And I had that experience. Like, I think the first couple of times I died, I was really tense about it. I was like, shit, I've lost all this. But then you realize after a couple of cycles, like, I picked this stuff. Okay, you can get a few runs where you just don't pick up a good weapon and you get shafted. But on the whole, you always get something that you're good with, or will get you through
Or
the
you
next
can
part.
make work.
Yeah, and like, it's not that difficult. You just have to get over that kind of reluctance to let go of your belongings, to having like, I have whatever, I've 20 or 30 more deaths, or more than you. I think I've 35 more deaths than you.
I don't know.
Like,
I finished the game with 23 deaths, I think.
I think I was 54 or something, and it's like, it doesn't matter. I completed the game, I enjoyed it, and it's just that ego of like, look, just accept that you're going to die.
Yeah.
The amount of death you have is it's nonsense. It doesn't matter. Just
One
learn
thing
to
I'll
play the
say
game.
about the game, though, every death I knew was my own fault.
Oh yeah.
I didn't. And Louise laughs at me because I'd be like, this fucking game's fucking me up. I never once said it with Returnal. It was, no, I know
Oh
why
yeah.
I know why I died. I know what caused that death.
Hmm.
Now, there was sometimes where I just got bullshit with RNG, but I don't think the RNG side of it is as punishing as people made out either. Because you will get something that you can make work. It may take you a bit of time to get to the room that gives you that something, but you will get something that you can make work.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just go buy the game. Simple
Go
as
get
that.
it. Go play the game. Yeah, go play it.
Yeah.
It's worth a playthrough. Yeah, it really is worth a playthrough.
It is worth it at every price point, from
Yeah,
80 from 79.99 down to as ever cheap as it'll ever be. It is worth.
from
all-
$79.99 to a PS Plus for the month of whatever. It is worth it.
If that's ever PS Plus, that is probably one of the best ones they'll ever
It
do.
will eventually, or it will eventually be added to the PS
Collection.
Plus collection, but it shouldn't be for a while. Housemarque deserve all the money they can fucking get for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's probably wrapping it up. Highly recommended game, like highly. There's not I couldn't name 5 games off the top of my head that I recommend more than it, in recent memory anyway.
Yeah. At least to a general audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. So go play it.
Yep.
We're not going to talk about Pokemon Presents. We've gone long enough.
I need to go to bed.
Yeah.
5 to 12.
The news this week is, I don't know what's even in the news this week. GTA is getting a remaster of the trilogy. However, it's all been done. No, it's not. They're not just giving it a lick of paint. They're rebuilding it in Unreal Engine. So that's
right.
interesting to follow.
We'll see now. Do they release it like episodically at full price?
But
the one bit of news that I did see, and this is time limited, is Mortal Shell, if you have it, have released their new roguelike DLC called The Virtuous Cycle. From now until August 20th or 25th, it's actually free. If you own Mortal Shell, it's free. After that, it goes to full price of $6.99. Not a large price of admission. If you want to support the developers, wait until it's free and go buy it, or wait until it's not free and then go buy it. But if you have it, if this is your warning now, go pick it up. It has just released on Steam, and if you have it on Epic or Xbox or PlayStation, get the DLC for free. Pretty sound.
Pretty sound. I won't get into news. There's some news there that I could pull, but I'm not going to. We've been at this long enough. Epic bad this week, apparently. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. Jesus. Yeah, that's a big one. Save that for next week. Get Dale in, seeing as he shared the thing and was all proud of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool that they did it. Just not. Just not in the way they did it.
Yeah, like
it's not easy to go. Hello, Mr. or Mrs. Among Us. Do you want a collab?
We have money.
No problem, Tim. Happy to do something.
Yeah.
Doesn't take much. But anyway, yeah, we'll sign off there on Returnal Review. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed the game. I'll never play it again because of that platinum unless there's DLC. But yeah, Housemark, GG, did a great job. Really excited to see what you guys do next. Because, yeah, it's, now that they're in that AAA space, it's exciting. They've always developed games that look cool, but I wouldn't be interested in. So now that they're in that AAA space, it's exciting to see what they do next. Maybe they'll remaster The Last of Us 2 as a bullet hell game.
I'd actually play that.
That's a joke. Anyway, thank you.
I would play that.
Next week's topics kind of write themselves. We've Destiny's Season of the Redacted launching. We have the Witch Queen showcase drops at the same time next week because the servers are going to shit the bed and we're all going to have a couple hours to watch something. And then opening night live is on next Wednesday. So that's what next week's going to be. We're going to talk about Destiny's showcase and we're going to talk about opening night live because Jeff shows off games on opening night for Gamescom. So hopefully some cool announcements at that. It's the end of the summer game. It's the end of the summer game fest. So hopefully there's some cool stuff. Skyrim for your, I don't know what.
Toaster.
Vending machine.
For your foot. Anyway.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
As always. Go get Returnal. Peace.
Thank us later. Bye.